All right, let's go. The April 10, 2025 special meeting of the Malibu City Council is now called to order. Public comment will be limited to the items on the agenda. If you'd like to speak, please submit your request to speak form to the clerk. May we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Conrad?
Here.
Councilmember Silverstein?
I'm here.
Councilmember Euring?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Riggins?
Here.
Mayor Stewart?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, may we have approval, may we have a report of the posting of the agenda?
Yes, the agenda for this meeting was properly posted on April 8th, 2025.
Thank you. May we have an approval of the agenda? May I have a motion?
I'll move to approve it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Being none, approved. All right, let's start on. We have public comments on the agendized items. Do we have any speaker slips?
May I?
Sure.
I want to do a little continuance from our last meeting. At the last meeting, we talked about incorporating technology into our program. And I had a chance to take a look at this product, Avistar. I don't know if everybody's seen the demo of it. But I've done some more research on that. I got an email from the city planning director talking about the concerns they had. I sent that to the developer. They got some responses. There's a consortium trying to raise $2 million to make this thing available for all the cities, Santa Monica, Altadena, Palisades. So I want to provide more information on that at our 24th meeting, but it seems to me to be a project that can help us. It is an AI project that uses, allows them to go up and design different things. And from what I can see, it will enable us to, it's not going to solve every problem, but in terms of people submitting plans to the city, it will check those plans, give them a real good idea before they have to go to the planner to see what's going on, and may help us speed this whole process through the city. So I'm going to do some more work on that. I'll bring it back on the 24th, but it seems like something we should pursue, so I'll be back on that one.
All right, thank you very much, Steve. All right, let's get started. We've got speaker slips, and someone's keeping time, right? We've got the time?
Yes.
3 minutes. All right, Marissa Kaufman, you're up first.
No, I'd like to, hold on, please. I want to hear some of the comments. I'm sorry, I thought they were not having this.
All right, next up is Brian Merrick, and then Rick Brown.
Where do I go?
Just
Right there.
All right. Yeah, so thanks for speaking to me. So this one's on the septic issues, right? So I believe that we're talking about potentially bringing a sewer in, which, I mean, I would be in favor of that, but I also, not at the expense of projects having to sit for multiple years waiting for a sewer to come in. I do believe that the beachfront property should have the same abilities as the land side from a standpoint of if your septic is working, it should be allowed to be inspected and proven that it's working, and then you'd be able to use that. Maybe we put a future hookup in our building for the sewer if it comes through, but I don't think we should be forced into an advanced system if your system is working. Because that's a big price tag for most of the people on the beach, especially if you have had a system that's been in the the city network and been tested and certified for years that it was working and it was undamaged in the fire, and you still have what amounts to a decent seawall. You would have to replace the seawall most likely because of the sea rise, but the septic shouldn't have to go. And something else, but I forget. So that's it. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next up is Reg Brown, followed by Joan Zoll.
Thank you, City Council. My name is Reg Brown. I'm a coastal and structural engineer in Malibu for 42 years. I just want to voice my recommendation that the City Council and the City of Malibu does not adopt self-certification for these projects, the fire rebuilds, particularly in areas like Big Rock, either Big Rock Mesa or Big Rock Beach. In 1983, the 82-83 El Nino storm, when Big Rock Mesa really started to move towards the ocean, it pushed Pacific Coast Highway 3 to 6 feet closer to the ocean. And I've seen the county surveys to document this. Also, when you went out, when there were beach houses out there, if you took a look even at moon shadows, the piles were tilted towards the ocean, sometimes 3 to 4 feet from the bottom of the pile. So we had to do a lot of engineering on the foundations of a lot of those buildings, including moon shadows. I believe David Weiss did the moon shadows reinforcement for those piles. So my concern is that self-certification on these projects, you don't have local experience with local design professionals, and with the self-certification, it's just open to too much shenanigans on this. So that's all I wanted to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Johnny
Zola.
Zola,
Hi.
and followed by Jake Holt.
Go to the microphone.
Oh, over here?
And just a point of clarification, that microphone is hooked to that camera, so the recording that'll be posted later, it'll be for the full room, so just want to let you know. Thank you.
So, my family owns a home on La Costa Beach, and my parents, they bought the home. We've lived there since I've been 6 years old, and they fought against sewers because they didn't want hotels to come onto the beach. And but now I'm in a catch-22 position because my family now owns the home, and we're going to rebuild, and there's a huge cost, of course, because of having to redo our septic and seawall, etc. But I am concerned because there's so many lots that are going to be available that could be developed into hotels. And I am concerned because we've seen on Carbon that individuals have bought up several homes on Carbon, I think in anticipation that there may be sewers and there'll be hotels. And I don't want Malibu to change. And although, for me, it would save me a lot of money eventually to have sewers in East Malibu and on La Costa, but I'm concerned right now, as people are trying to determine whether to rebuild or not, that this may be an issue. That's it.
All right, thank you.
Hans, could you
Don't
ask
put
permission?
that, don't
for
put
the-
that in somebody's face. Please don't do that.
Without their permission, anyway.
Yeah, don't do that.
It's a public meeting.
It is a public
Hans,
meeting, but you
Hans,
can't
don't
walk up
put
to
it in
people
their
and
face.
invade their space.
Right, can't do that.
They're speaking at a public meeting.
Hans, don't put it in their face, please.
It's
If anyone
rude.
is uncomfortable, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm
Jake
uncomfortable with
Holt
that. I'm
next,
uncomfortable with
and
that.
followed by Christopher Sorbertson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I'm Jake Holt, owner and principal engineering geologist, Land Phases Inc. out of Simi Valley. I've been performing engineering geologic studies in the city of Malibu for 30 years now. I've worked on thousands of projects up and down the coast, several dozen, Big Rock Mesa neighborhood. I've also worked on hundreds of fire rebuild projects dating back to the 1993 fire. Over the last 30 years, I've seen a lot of things in Malibu, but for the record, I've never seen a worse idea than that of self-certification of plant sets for the rebuilding of homes in the Big Rock Mesa area. The potential problems with this idea are significant. First of all, no matter how experienced and talented the design professionals are on a project, they still need a thorough peer review and plan check to ensure that the standard of care and conformance with the building code are met. Also, who will be in charge or ultimately responsible for the self-certification? The project architect, the project structural engineer, the property owner? Who is going to peer review the geotechnical report to ensure that the findings, conclusions, recommendations, and disclosure are proper for the Big Rock Mesa area? Or will the owner be able to self-certify on their own that they don't need a geotechnical report? This would be an extremely foolish idea in a historically active landslide area. Another critical issue is wastewater disposal. Who will be responsible for reviewing and self-certifying the design of the new on-site wastewater system or recertification of the existing system? Who will be the responsible party to absolutely ensure there will be no increase in wastewater discharge into the Big Rock Mesa landslide? Would it be the property owner who perhaps wants to add another bedroom or bathroom to the home? Or the architect who wants to make the client happy by adding more rooms or bathrooms in that plan set? A cumulative post-fire increase in the wastewater discharge in the Big Rock Mesa area could tip the stability balance in the area and lead to renewed landslide movement. Also, as happened after the Woolsey fire, the local design professionals can only handle so many clients at one time, and a vacuum is then created which sucks in geotechnical, architectural, and engineering firms from other parts of the state. While these consultants hold a state license to practice, they may not have a strong understanding of the local geologic conditions and codes and ordinances of the city of Malibu. and homeowners who are desperate to get started with their fire rebuild project and who may not be familiar with the process often end up hiring non-local design firms. With this condition in place, self-certification without a thorough peer review and plan check will most certainly fail and lead to serious consequences such as design defects, construction defects, and future distress and damage to the residents, and almost certain costly legal action. Now, these fires were a disaster, and the scope of the rebuilding is beyond anything we've ever seen, and we all want to help those who have lost homes to rebuild as fast as possible. The self-certification of geotechnical reports and plans is not the way to go. The issues that will most certainly arise will only serve to extend the disaster for these folks, and worse yet, result in poorly performing homes. Do not create another disaster for these homeowners with distressed homes, decreased home values, and lawsuits. Build Malibu back the right way.
Thank you. All right, Christopher Sorensen, followed by Don Schmidt.
Hello, Council. I'm Christopher Sorensen, architect. I've been working on Malibu for about 30 years. Lecture sustainable architecture at UCLA, licensed in New York. In California, we're also a contractor, so we understand construction a bit. As a sewer meeting, I know this is a special meeting to discuss sewers. I wanted to kind of lay out some ideas I've already kind of mentioned. I had a presentation that we emailed in, but I guess there's no screen to show it. I have it on my iPad and I can send it. But I thought this would be a perfect time since we've lost so many homes, and of course the concerns about building back the sewer and the seawalls, which I've said before. Of course, it's about $250,000 to put back a new sewer system, advanced wastewater treatment system, and another $250 at least to put a seawall. 327 homes lost. You're talking about $161 of private funding. I've reached out to the bond companies that finance these type of sewer projects, and effectively I think this is a perfect time to, we've done phase 1, phase 2 of the Civic Center wastewater treatment plant facility. It's perfect time for phase 3. The last one was very successful in 2018. It seems like it's time for phase 3. My understanding is that can process, 308,000 gallons of water a day. Those beach homes are going to probably produce another 110,000 gallons of effluent or sewage a day at peak times. And then, of course, the fires, I think there's a big consensus that one of the reasons why so many homes burnt is because we ran out of water from the St. Inez Reservoir, 141 or 49,000 or 49 million gallons that were not there to fight the fires. So instead of just, the big thing in Malibu is when you put effluent, the treated water back into the ground, that's the big approval hurdle. And so what if we don't put it back into the ground? What if we store it in storage tanks, 3 million gallon storage tanks, several across the way? We have our own water. Fire can tap into it. We can use it for landscape irrigation. We can actually add chlorinization and oxidation to the water, so it's actually potable. So I know it's not a big political thing to drink your own sewage water, but they do it. They've been doing it in Europe for a long time. So forget about that idea. But how about using all this water that we create, and instead of flushing it out to the bay, we want to heal the bay, and let's store it. Let's use it for the next fire. We all probably understand that a fire will come back. We need to build back better, smarter, be more fire resilient. So we can. That's one concept that we have. Let's do phase 3 there. It was a $61 million project for all 3 phases. I mean, for all 2 phases. Does it have to be $60 million for phase 3? I don't think so. I've done a lot of research talking to different companies. It doesn't need to be that expensive, frankly, but we do need 7.1 miles of sewer line to run down PCH. Perfect time to do it. They're undergrounding the lines. We have another executive order from our governor, basically Gavin Newsom, stating that he's going to help waive CEQA and Coastal Commission approval process. The water board quality is always concerned about putting water into the ground and into the bay. What if we're not putting water into the ground, into the bay? We have a perfect political climate to pass through that, store our water, keep our water. California's always in drought. There's always fires. Let's keep our water. We produce water. We put it into the ground. That's a big thing. That's a problem in Malibu. So let's not do that. Let's not put the water back into the ground at the landslide at Big Rock. Let's store it. So one concept is phase 3. 7.1 miles. And then we can do a bond. We can create a special district, 51% vote, get a bond, pass for that, or Concept 2 is we can put a couple little micro plants along the way. There's many companies that are very established, and the footprint of these little treatment plants are very small. So that's concept 2. We could, instead of tapping phase 3, there's a couple little lots along the way. We can do smaller little micro plants. Thank you so much.
Thank you. By the way, just a point of clarification, the reservoir that ran out in San Ynez was in the Department of Water and Power District, not at Planning District 29. All right, Don Schmidt's up next, then is it Darren? Graves, okay. Get your bigger pen.
Afternoon. First, congratulations to everybody here and all of us for our local coastal program amendment not only being processed in record time, but sailing through at the Coastal Commission. I was up there prepared to support it today, and they moved it to consent calendar. Almost anticlimactic. Don't get used to it. That's not the way things normally work. Second, congratulations, Maureen, for being appointed to the local area formation commission. That's very prestigious. So the issue as it pertains to a sewer line, you can put me in the category as I was very dubious about this. Not that it's not a great idea, it is a great idea. Not that this is a fortuitous time to do it while we're out there breaking eggs and making omelets. It's the timing. And the timing on a project like that is 10 years, easy. You got CEQA, you got the Coastal Act, you have the engineering, you have the formation of the assessment district. Meanwhile, we have hundreds of people whose homes burn down, and what are they going to do? Are they going to sit there and twiddle their thumbs? Are they going to spend a couple $100,000 on an on-site, advanced on-site wastewater treatment system and a seawall, only to then vote additional indebtedness for them to tie into the sewer line? But I've been talking to folks, and it seems to me that there is an argument to be made that the existing governor's executive orders could in fact waive CEQA. An EIR, that's 3 years of the program right there. Could be interpreted that it's waived the need for a coastal development permit. You still have to engineer it. There are some old dusty engineering files from the county's sewer line design that they had back in the 80s to take the effluent out to, actually I think down towards Coastline to the east as opposed to the Civic Center. Maybe there could be things that could be done to fast track it, but to do it really and truly do it in a manner which is not going to impede the ability of people to rebuild their homes, you're going to have to knock it out in just a couple years, which would be yet again another record. And if we just set a record in regards to a local coastal program amendment, maybe, just maybe, we could do it. But the first thing that would have to happen would be to get some seed money from for the establishing the engineering and to get going on these things. I've had folks talk to me, look, it's simple. We're digging a trench, we're dropping a pipe in the ground. I wish the world was really that simple. It is a fantastic idea, but your first order of business, council members, is to really do an honest assessment in regards to whether or not there is a viable opportunity here to do that within the timeframes that we're talking about.
Thank you. All right. Darren, you're up next, then Andrew Shaw.
Good afternoon. So my name is Darren Graves. First, I want to thank you all for convening and having these work sessions. The weekly community meetings are very informative and helpful, so I appreciate all the efforts regarding that. In regards to a citywide sewer, I've been speaking to my neighbors along Big Rock Beach, and it does seem that we are all in support of such an implementation at this time. We do think that it should be initiated now, as the Palisades fire burn zone has been taken over by contractors and public utility servicemen for the foreseeable future. And we think that the disruption to PCH, the additional disruption, would be minimal, so we might as well take advantage of the next 2 to 3 years of the construction zone. In order to keep Malibu a community of families, we believe that the implementation of the sewer is necessary in eastern Malibu. It would make the rebuilds much more palatable to the homeowners because of the cost. The cost cited by Mr. Sorensen, around $500,000 per home. It's a large chunk of what we have from the insurance companies already. Personally, the project that I'd be associated with, my parents' house, That's 2/3 of our construction budget. Thus, we would have a shack left over rather than a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house which burnt down. Additionally, we believe that pulling effluent out of the homes and into a sewer is a more ecological manner to handle our waste than treating it through an AOWTS and then pushing it into the ground, which will eventually leach out underneath the seawall and into the ocean. So for the next 70 years, we'd rather look at having a sewer take all of that effluent to a proper waste treatment center and then push it out into the ocean along with, scattergood or LEDWP's normal method of pushing that out into the ocean. We believe that the westward expansion of the sewer line could progress at a later date once the sewer has been put in at the 7.1 miles that Mr. Sorensen was referring to in this proposed Phase 3 sewer expansion project. Also, in regards to the self-certification discussion, I would second or echo the opinions given by both Jake and, was it Rex? Reg. Playing around with engineering expertise and bringing in engineers that don't know the local strata of geologic rock is really an invitation for disaster. I've been working in construction for the last 20 years, and plans of this nature do need to be peer reviewed probably multiple times before they're actually approved. I wouldn't want to risk, a house falling into the ocean like it did in 1983. My house was actually next to 20222 PCH, which was the house that the county required be demolished after the 1983 landslide. And so these piles that everybody stated were leaning into the ocean, they actually were, and we don't want that to happen again.
Thank you very much. Next up is Andrew Sheldon, and then Sawa Lama.
Andrew Sheldon, Sheldon Engineering. I'm a multi-generational resident of this area, and I have worked in on-site and sewer engineering for about 20 years, and I have a lot of knowledge. I worked for this city. I helped to write the on-site wastewater management program. I worked in negotiations between the city and the Regional Water Quality Control Board and the State Water Resources Control Board to establish regulations under which the city currently operates. And I have understood the sewer options, the on-site wastewater options. I've studied carefully the historical work that the city did going back into the 1990s. I have a lot of knowledge of how this city has come to where it is now, and I want to express that the concept of package or smaller communal systems in different parts of the city has been explored before. You can look at your city records and find it. There's been discussion of Big Rock having its own system going way, way, way back. There's been discussions of having a West Malibu small plant, as well as a Civic Center plant, which we worked on and got to happen. Not everybody agreed it was a good idea, but it was required of the city, and the city did it. I want to say about what East Malibu right now is that I have had the opportunity to do feasibility studies for the state park system on extending the sewer from Topanga State Park at the beach to Coastline Drive, where the connection to the sanitation, LA County Sanitation District hookup is. And that alone was found to be in the neighborhood of $60 million for mitigation of very difficult geologic issues that occur there. I don't know if everyone here remembers, the old timers, I see a few around, when all the street buckled there in front of the gas station for many years and that huge retaining wall was built. That's a condition that still has to be dealt with that we explored during that feasibility study. And the state park system opted to instead do an on-site wastewater system for the state park improvements that are planned for the future after all this debris cleanup is done and that site is finished being used. So another thing about the running the sewer through East Malibu is that those seawalls that are holding up the septic systems are also holding up your land. And City Council, you may remember a few weeks back, I spoke to you about this at a City Council meeting. those seawalls are what keep your land under your house, and under the public trust doctrine, if you lose your land to the tidal submergence, the state then owns your land. So it's something to carefully think about.
Thank you very much. All right, Salo, and followed by Howard Redsky.
Hi, everyone. So I am going to speak about two things: the geotechnical requirement, review requirement, and about the fixtures, the fixture counts. I'm speaking on behalf of Big Rock residents, so this is not just me. And basically what we would like is for you to waive anything discretionary beyond what our expert geotechnical engineers required to rebuild, which is most likely going to be the foundation study on most of our flat burnout lots. We are all required to sign hazard waivers anyway, regardless, so the city should not have any liability with these issues. Our homes burned down. If they hadn't, they would still be standing now and there would be no geological issues. Houses have not been affected by the landslide for decades, and this has been reported by the city geotechnical monitoring experts, as well as EA and Associates in the last few years. Big Rock, as everyone knows, is the most studied area in all of California, and we have paid millions of dollars for these studies to be done. Every year we continue to do so. So we would like to ask a simple question. What's the purpose of requiring us to make further studies which go beyond how much water we are using? Because our understanding is the problem is the water is moving the rock. Our load of water usage are what affects our landslide, and neither will increase with the risk. Neither will increase the risk. Right now, what we're doing is we are improving our foundations. We are using fire-safe materials. We are only using low-flow fixtures, and we are increasing our defensible space around the home. So we're going way beyond what the city even requires for us to, for our houses to remain safe. Trust me, no one wants our house to be moving into the ocean or burnt again or any of that stuff. Hopefully, it won't. It's my understanding that this is all the codes that are, all the codes required basically is, so that's one thing. The second thing I need to talk about is the number of fixtures. So before the fire, it was agreed by the city that you can increase the number of fixtures in the house if you use low flow toilets, because technically there's less water going through your toilet with the low flow toilets. This has been, the city wants to reverse this. We're not understanding why. We will be lowering our water usage by a minimum of 50%. So we should be able to use the credit against these low flow toilets. We should use them in one of two ways. If someone wants to add the bathroom, they can do that, or if someone wants to have an ADU that they can eventually become part of the house, they should be able to do that. Especially that the governor's executive order is allowing everyone to get an ADU. It's very clear from all the reports available on the city's website that we will never slide, I don't know about never say never, but that we will not hopefully slide into the ocean if we rebuild up to 10%, especially if we are reducing our water usage exponentially and updating all of our home foundations. We also ask that you authorize city planning to help us move forward with the overlay district that the department has been encouraging Big Rock to complete for decades. So that will help everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Howard Redsky is up next, followed by, is it Harold Bernstein?
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for being here. It's a big challenge. The facts are that most of these people are underinsured. We would like the locals back, or at least I think most of us would like the locals back. For that to happen, it has to be economical for them to build. I was never in favor of a sewer, but now with this circumstance, I am, because the amount of money it will take for most of these people to build back, if they have to put in a septic and a seawall, it's over $1 million. And they don't even have that in some cases to rebuild. So the challenge, is how do we work with these people to let them build back quickly and have some type of hookup when we get the sewer? Because if we want a sewer, now's the time to do it. The governor's on our side, Sacramento's on our side, Caltrans is being somewhat reasonable. District 29, Public Works, we can pressure them to get this done, and we can make some allowances for people that have the sewer or the septic that they have now, or there's temporary septics they can use and pump until this is put in. But I think if we don't do this now, we're not going to get back the locals, and we're just going to be a town of a bunch of rich people that have vacation homes on the beach. Thank you.
All right. It's Art, right?
That's me.
And followed by Megan Lloyd.
Okay. I'm a non-professional, so don't take this as accurate. First and most important, the County of Los Angeles between '86 and '90 did extensive work on the sewer. I know this firsthand because the Malibu Township Council hired my firm to audit the county. I was a partner in charge. There's a vast amount of information sitting in the county. They don't destroy any papers. So if you're going to contemplate a sewer, I would urge a starting point would be there. Don Schmidt, who so eloquently put forth his thoughts, hit on something. Realistically, if we start tomorrow, you're 8 to 10 years away from a sewer. Let's look at the economics facing somebody with a decision, should they put in a wastewater system. I can't give you the amount it's going to cost because I don't know what the engineering is. Let's pick a number of $250,000, maybe low. If you do that over 10 years, it's $25,000 a year amortized. That's $2,000 a month. If anybody in Malibu looks at their local water bill, it could run $1,000 a month. So $2,000 a month to amortize a septic system is not outrageous. If I'm wrong and it only takes 8 years, so it's $2,200 a month. I would not think that the economics are so disastrous as to stop somebody from building now. Let us build as long as the septic system is working. If possible, in my case, for example, mine may be functioning, and if it is, limit my bathrooms and my bedrooms. I have a 2-bedroom limit, and I have a 60 or 7, I don't know what the limitations on fixtures. I'll gladly hook up to your sewer. I want the sewer. I had hepatitis, and almost every surfer I know has had hepatitis. That's not an accident. That's the damn septic systems feeding into the ocean. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Megan Lloyd, followed by Rob Cloud.
Hi, thanks for having these meetings. I think they're great. They're very informative. So I wasn't going to speak, but when the engineers started talking about Big Rock, I decided I better say something. I grew up in Big Rock. I was born there. I lived in my parents' house. They bought it in 1966. I lived through all the slides, the highway being closed for 3 months. You know, the highway is so much better than it was when I was growing up. I mean, there would be mud, just massive mud flows. So what you guys are dealing with today is nothing like it was in the 70s and 80s. And so when you talk about Big Rock and that it's a slide area, we all are aware that it's a slide area, but we're also aware that once the pumps went in and everything, it has not slid since then. It was frustrating a couple of years ago when there was a discussion brought up that it was geologically unstable, and it had nothing to do with reality. It had to do with some other nonsense. And so I want everyone here to know that Big Rock has not moved since they put the stuff in. I'm not saying I think people, if they have, you know, their properties, whatever they're doing, they need their geologists and whatever. I don't have any problem with the geologists, but I want people to know that Big Rock has not moved, and I'm not asking for anything special. I just want everyone to know this because I'm really getting tired of this narrative that Big Rock is this big behemoth that is going to push everyone into the ocean, because it hasn't moved. You guys have done what you're supposed to do. Yee and Associates done what they're supposed to do. We pay our special assessment district. I don't want more water in the mountain. I don't want any of that. So, you know, it was traumatizing as a kid to think that my house was I was gonna wake up and the house was gonna slide it down to the mountain. I mean, I probably have PTSD from it. But you know what? in the last 40 years, it's been good. And I want it to continue to be good, and I want people to have their home and live up there. It's a new generation that's up there. People have, young families have moved in there. You know, people can get loans on the properties that they used to not be able to get in the 80s and 90s. So it's nice, but it's this constant narrative that Big Rock is this huge problem. So I just really need to put that out there. And I also think that in terms of the sewers on PCH, all those folks between Tuna or Topanga and Las Flores, most of those houses are tiny. They're all underinsured. They've been holding up the highway for years. They are never going to be able to afford to rebuild, and it's a shame. And I know we talked about this a few weeks ago. It's really important that whoever in the city works with the state and gets the funding, because it's a state highway. They should give us funding, or the people funding, to build back a seawall and put the sewer in. So.
Okay, Bob McLeod, then Marissa McCall.
Thank you. I agree with everyone but Don Schmitz, and I love him.
That's the first time.
Thank you. I have actually built something, and I've been on Las Tunas Beach. I've been on the Groin Committee. I've worked with actually Caltrans as a partnership in a development downtown that I started with them, a lease over the Harbor Freeway to build a structure and get CTC approval. And Caltrans did respond to some correspondence I sent to them, and they want to meet about the things we're talking about. But first of all, PCH. This is the time to build a continuous bulkhead that goes from Carbon Beach to Topanga. If you don't build that bulkhead, they're going to be servicing the Coast Highway intermittently for the next 7 years. There's going to be breakdowns on the Coast Highway where people haven't built because, as everyone said, private sector has been holding up the Coast Highway for all this time. And so if the state, federal, and the government doesn't rebuild the Coast Highway, they'll have to wait, and iteratively it'll be rebuilt over time with accidents all summer with closures. In addition, besides the state and government building this bulkhead, think about the government defense industry. They need the Coast Highway to service Vandenberg and the coast should the Chinese decide to land here instead of Taiwan. And so, seriously, in World War II, that was the case. So the Coast Highway is an important government entity, both for defense and the bulkhead as defense of. We have permitting neuterization, I guess we'll call it, of the Coastal Commission. So now's the time to do something. It's not going to take what Don says to get done when the Coastal Commission is dismissed from the emergency rebuild that has to happen for houses as well as the Coast Highway, which is part of it, and you need to look to that, I hope. In addition, there's 15 million people who come here, as we know, usually in the summer, but they come here for our beaches. And so now's the time to test the coastal neutering to put offshores along with our bulkhead. And the offshores are groins, which I do know about, should have been put back in at some modest amount, and as well as volcanoes and fish caves and things like that that can help the beaches thrive. Malibu's known for its beaches, and the 15 million people that want to come here and the people who live here want those beaches. So let's figure out how to test and have a test at Las Tunas and so forth along to build the sand back and show the Coastal Commission that this is how it happens. Now here's what it costs for every homeowner. It's not $100,000 and it's not $500,000. I spent over $1.5 million just for a sandbox. And a sandbox today in a dry beach cost me over $1 million. On a wet beach, imagine. First, you need to build shoring, because how do you build a wall if you don't have shoring? So you build some shoring with steel down and timbers. Then, after that, you start to build caissonettes, and those caissonettes are for your future walls, and that's a seawall out front where the waves are breaking, and that those caissons support. I'll wind it up. They support, unfortunately, what's called a torsion beam, 4x4. So that's concrete 4x4. On top of that, you build a 15-foot concrete wall. Well, you don't just build a seawall, you build a return wall because your neighbor's not ready. So you have to build one on the east and on the west side. Sorry. And then, this is the important part, because I just spent $1.5 million, so my wife wanted to give me 3 more minutes.
All right, we'll let you go, but please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. So then, thank you. So then, after the concrete wall, 15, and returns, either you build the bulkhead or the state and feds have built the bulkhead. So let's say the feds build that bulkhead, and they have to, because when are you going to build? 1 year, 2 years, 3, 6? And meanwhile, the coast highway is exposed, as I mentioned. So now, after that, you get to put in your septic tank, and that's a couple $100,000, $250,000, plus not the sand that's near you, double wash sand that you have to import. So that's double wash sand, that's trucking on the coast highway, that's sand put in your leach field to go with your leach field. So you got the tank, the leach field, the sand, the walls on both sides, the wall behind you that's holding up the coast highway, and the seawall that cost you X. But wait a minute. You haven't built a foundation for your house yet. So where's that going to go? How are you going to drill it? Where's the equipment going to go that's going to drill it? And how many caissons do you put down? Let's say 2. I've seen one house built with 2. How about 4? Do I hear 6 in the back? I hear 6. And the answer is yes, most possibly 6. So now you're putting 6 down. What does that cost? Well, I'll tell you, that's going to cost you $2.5 million. So now you're at $3.5, $4 million for the house on the coast highway, either 30, 50, or 100 feet. It's not going to really matter how big or wide it is, because how do you get the equipment there to build the 30? And the answer is it's almost the same difficulty. More trucks, etc. So now, what's the price of the house on the coast highway? And yes, who's going to be building it? Unfortunately, it may not be the people that had the cabins or the houses that were light, that were on the pilings that are useless today and useless tomorrow. So they, unfortunately, may not be able to afford those houses. And I can just say, for the people that can and do want to build on the coast highway, the only reasonable way to build is with a bulkhead built by the government, by the state or the feds, and a sanitation system that can also be built by SAME, or could be built by an emergency geologic, in this case sanitation district, that could tap into each homeowner that would be more than willing to pay $200,000 each to plug in to the side of the highway, instead of building what I just mentioned in my overtime. And thank you for your time today.
Don't mean to cut anybody short, but we're trying to be fair to everybody. Melissa Kaufman.
Yeah, hi. Marissa Coughlin. Been here decades and decades. Everybody knows me. Just in response, if I may, to something Rob said, if the Coastal Commission had the sea groins taken out, number one. Number two, if they want to buttress it, they're going to want it for public access. They're not going to want you to have your home back. So that's number two. And then, now I'll say what I was going to say. The cost of the sewer, the timing, the size, and what it takes to do it, the package plants, what availability is in our current system, Mr. DeVoe could address, and he's very knowledgeable since he's done it many times. But I suggest that all the homes that are going back, have the city allow them to put in their lateral extensions to connect from the homes if a sewer goes in, then they just have to connect. You don't have to implement the sewer right away. Have some sort of offset for the systems that are compliant now to stay, but make them sign an agreement. If the sewer comes in, they have to abandon that and connect to the sewer. It's a very progressive thing, and it would work. They would have agreements for the lateral. They would have timelines. The cost and district formation are all where it happens, how it happens, and how many people are on it. The self-certification, I agree with the licensed professionals. In New York in 2006 and 2007, they had self-certification. And then they had to vacate 55 buildings. And after they researched them, it took them 15 years to fix the 55 buildings. And for 3.5 years, the licensed professionals could not use their licenses, and once they stamped the plans and approved that. Big Rock issues, I agree with this lady who's had her house on the beach a long time. I really feel bad. I've lived here since '68. I understand the reports on Big Rock, the original ownership of the Mormon Church. It was geologically unstable then. They sold it. Upper Big Rock was improved. Lower Big Rock was still undeveloped. It's developed through these years, and all the reports that are done. Our city has them if anybody wants to look at them. I want their houses back, but my concern is ADUs And if they use it even for temporary housing while they build, how are they gonna get them out then, and what impacts on the water system and the groundwater would there be? And also, if you have a low-flow toilet, I know where I lived on Malibu Road near Rob for years, people flip those out the minute you got approval, and then you'd have the same volume back in. How are you going to guarantee that those low flush toilets and everything remain? You can't, unless you have 52,000 inspectors who go house to house every day. As far as the funding is concerned, there are law firms, and I've mentioned this to Mr. Tony, that handle that. They'll send a lawyer in, they'll check the finances. The county is not sharing FEMA money with us, which they're supposed to be sharing, and other things. So I'll leave it at that. If you want more info, I'll give it to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that takes all the public speakers, stuff we have. We're not online, right?
Correct.
All right, so there's nobody online. And now it's time to go.
Somebody with a hand.
Please.
Ed Niles is back here.
Go ahead.
Yes.
You want to speak?
I would like to.
All right, you don't have a speaker slip, but you're Ed Niles. Come on.
He's gonna get a statue also, right?
I want you to ask
I'm the
about
second
that.
one that disagrees with Mr., oh, well, not speaking who that is. Okay, very quick turnaround. Very quick. Do I hold that? Is that it? Or I don't want it recorded, by the way. Not allowed. Anyway, I'm only kidding. I don't really understand this. I've been out here for, as everybody starts off, I've been out here for 64 years. I really do not understand how you can justify building on the ocean to begin with. I've seen the evolution of the ocean. I've seen it destroyed. I taught ecological engineering at USC. One of the first things we did was to use the ocean as a model for design. And I can tell you clearly that the simple answer for the ocean, and I don't want to step on anybody, I'm not trying to, is to stay away from it. The simple matter for the ocean is to get the state to build the highway properly for everybody. The simple matter for the ocean is not to build, to ask the state to come up, or the federal government, with a reimbursement for the value of the property as it stands today. So that's one thing. You will definitely have a value, and your value is created by what you own. So the state or the government cannot take it according to the Constitution without funding it. So that's something that should be looked into for a lot of people who do not have the coverage, who shouldn't be sitting here suffering as to whether or not their water is going to come down on top of them, or I can't tell you how many times I've had to drive out to the valley to go to USC. It's ridiculous assumption to have anybody assume that they can walk up to a house or a structure and ascertain whether the concrete foundation has been destroyed by looking at it, by kissing it, by hugging it, nor it has to do with the steel, the wood, everything required to build it. So how good the architect is, which I am one, of course, or in engineering like I've done, I do not understand what you're being fed as the public. You're being raised to a pedestal with the thought that somehow you're going to accomplish this. And I don't want to say you shouldn't, but it needs an incredible amount of funds and money. And unless that's solved first, when a client comes to me and says, I want to build this incredible place, what do I say? Number one, I'm Jewish. So I say, how much money do you have? Okay? And that always goes over well because that's what it's all about in the final analysis. We can't kill ourselves or or diminish our children. There are a lot of arguments for it. So I've been out here for a long time. All I'm saying is I don't agree with those that would diminish the inspection of professionals. I would suggest that the city appoint, hire geologists, soil engineer, architects, and structural engineers as a group who simply move to all these sites, make a critical decision, because they can. I can look at a set of drawings and tell you in less than a half hour or even less what is missing from those drawings as far as the city is concerned. No one on that staff's a licensed architect except for the head of the planning department. So you have to understand, you have to start. Don't let him tell you any differently. Because there are many people out here that want to do things without having the proper controls. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Very courageous, Sam.
All right, with that, do we have any questions from the council at the moment? If not, what I'd like to do, and I know Bruce, you had a very good format last week, you put some time limits on each one of the topics that came along. What I'd like to do is, I think the sewer is going to be a longer topic, but let's try and work for a consensus out of the council as to what the decisions are as we move this along. I don't want to be the one that is making the decisions on it. I want us to do it as a group. I think we probably have a staff report on sewers. There's Mr. Sewer down there, Mr. Rob DeVoe. You want to tell us what we need to know?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, before, just to all the folks that have kind of congregated on this side, we do have some chairs and that available. If you want to shift down, now would be a great time to do so.
If anyone has trouble hearing, please let us know, because it is a bigger crowd today.
Yeah.
What? We need to wait just a moment for one of the council members to get back. Robert, you're going to be the only one making the presentation. We have anybody else here? Just me. All right. That's good. As kind of stalling here for a few moments. You did press just your quick resume. You are the one that did the Civic Center wastewater treatment plant, correct?
Correct. Phase 1, yes.
Mr. Mayor, before we get started, you have a question about what might be covered, maybe by asking it.
Yeah, so I was wondering whether Building Code 110.2.3.6 is going to be defined at all today for us, because that's the code that geology is using for the residents in Big Rock when they come in to meet with them, and I think there was some questions for.
Well, item number 2, the 3 items we're going to cover today are sewers, geotechnical requirements, and self-certification.
Okay.
So your geotechnical requirements will probably be in number 2.
Okay, thank you very much.
Where would the fixture count be in any one of these?
We'll see. Just so you know, I think the format that we had requested for this meeting is the sewers, this is an informational section to tell us what we have, what we might need, give us some ideas, and if we find an interest in doing the sewers, then we'll have to come back for a second further presentation. But right now, this is as much of a informational session for us as it is to set up the 4 corners of what we might or might not be able to do. So Rob, it's up to you. You want to come back?
Yep.
So good afternoon, everybody.
We both have
We're probably going to need a new battery for Kelsey.
All right, this is better. So approximately in 2006, 2009, the state water board and the regional board.
Playing in and out.
Testing. So they issued a septic prohibition.
Why don't you stand up over there?
Well, that's, the microphone, well, just so everyone's clear, that is a room microphone, so it's great for the audio recording. It will pick up on what Rob is saying, but as far as standing up, what he's doing with the handheld mic, it'll pick it up for everyone.
All right, go ahead.
So go back, the state and the regional water board put a septic prohibition within the Civic Center area. The city and the regional board entered into an MOU for an implementation plan on how we were going to comply with the septic prohibition. That septic prohibition was separated into 3 different phases. The first phase was the commercial properties within Civic Center. Second phase would extend it out and it would go into the condos off of Civic Center. It would includes the Colony and then part of Sarah Retreat. Phase 3 would extend even farther. It would go up more into Sarah Retreat and the Malibu Knolls in those areas. Phase 3 was conditional. What I mean by that is if water quality improvements got better, Phase 3 wouldn't need to kind of comply with the septic prohibition and connect to the central plant. 2018, the city completed Phase 1. It connected all the properties in Phase 1. Right now, we have a functioning wastewater plant on Civic Center Way. It's currently designed to treat about 192,000 gallons per day. Currently operating at probably about 70,000 gallons per day. So it's definitely completing, or it's operating lower than its design. And the reason is that we have several properties within the Civic Center area that are vacant. And when those properties eventually will build out, they would have the remaining capacity for that wastewater for Phase 1. Phase 2 was processing or going down the road. We were actually working with the regional board on developing an amendment to the MOU to start with Phase 2. And we had the Franklin fires, and we had the Palisades fires, and so that's kind of delayed a lot of the interaction and coordination between the regional board and the city on how we're going to proceed on Phase 2. So knowing that, the ultimate design of our treatment plant is roughly over 500,000 gallons per day. So it can treat that much wastewater per day. It's a plant that can be expanded. It was built to add different facilities to come up with additional capacity to treat the wastewater. The contributing factor to or actually the limiting factor of how much wastewater we can actually treat is how much water we can actually get rid of. Right now, we are using a series of injection wells. They're located behind the Ralph Shopping Center. They take the treated wastewater and they inject it into the ground, and it happens to be in this lower aquifer that actually can accept the water. We did extensive testing and modeling and found that 500,000 gallons today or per day was a safe and reliable number that we could use to dispose of wastewater. That process got evaluated and approved by the regional board, and so we have that ability to treat that much wastewater from the regional board. Now, that kind of gives you a little background where we are now and kind of what our treatment plant can process and do. There's a couple of different things that I was kind of exploring. I had several conversations with several design engineers that are design septic systems for the area, and also our lead plant operator, who is a grade 5 plant operator, and for those who don't know, that's the highest level of plant operation you can have. He was actually one of the plant operators over at Hyperion and knows that system very well too, and so I was able to tap into him some of the things, how we can proceed forward with connecting all the properties on PCH to a sewer system. So there's really 3, potentially 4 different options of how we could move forward with connecting those properties. So one of them is connecting those properties that will add up to the 500,000 gallons per day minus what we have for Phase 1 into our treatment plant for here in the city. A wastewater line can be, and a pump station can be installed by PCH, collect all the wastewater and pump it back to our plant, where we can process it. We can use it as recycled water, and then also to have the ability to dispose that with our injection wells. The other one is looking into possibly connecting those properties over to Hyperion. That would include a new line from the houses on PCH, and that would continue all the way down towards Santa Monica, make those connections, and be able to kind of transmit that water over to Hyperion. That process would require an extensive amount of kind of coordination, not only the county, Santa Monica, the regional board, and, to make sure everything is working, or everything can work right. For my conversations with my staff and my consultants and a plant operator, there would have to be an evaluation of that sewer line that goes from Santa Monica over to Hyperion to make sure it has enough capacity, and if there's anything that needs to be upgraded, we'd have to include that in there. Another potential option is to build a new treatment plant. And build a new treatment plant, that would require one, property to be able to do that, but most importantly is a place where you can dispose the wastewater. And depending on how many properties you have, there's a potential you could do smaller package plants or smaller plants with the ability to kind of how to dispose of the treated wastewater into the ground. But you're going to be limited to what that area can actually accept for wastewater in the ground. The other option, which is not the most popular option, is to build an ocean outfall. That ocean outfall, which would consist of a pipeline that is conveyed out approximately 5 miles out into the ocean, to where the treated wastewater will get pumped out and disposed of. Currently, right now, the regional board has required the city of Ventura to do that same thing. They are finalizing the connections so they can have an ocean outfall. It's a 5 mile pipe that goes out from there, and it discharges out in the ocean. So those are, I would consider 3. There could be a 4th option that I'm also exploring and looking into and seeing if the Las Virgenes or other local agencies that have wastewater can actually be able to take the wastewater. I haven't explored that fully yet, but that's also a possibility. Now, for my opinion, the quickest and easiest way to connect a large number of properties would be to connect those properties to our treatment plant. That would require the regional board to adjust the septic prohibition and to put all the additional allocations that were slated for phase 2 and phase 3 of the septic prohibition to all those properties along PCH. So that is my opinion. Is probably the easiest and quickest. It would take some work to do there. Yes, it would take a pipeline to go on PCH to do it. Most likely an assessment district, but there's all kinds of different other financing we can look into and do that for phase 1 of the treatment plant, and actually phase 2, we were looking into a low interest state loan that would be able to finance the project. The state also had a series of grants that could be applied to these type of projects. So those are the funding mechanisms that could go into this type of project.
Rob, one of the things you didn't cover that I thought we were going to get is maybe some idea of how much this might cost, and let's assume how many homes on PCH there might be, so we get some idea what the cost per house is.
Yeah, for example, we were estimating, and prices have kind of probably changed, but for phase 2, we were looking at close to $65 million for upgrading our plant for the additional capacity and the pipeline associated with that. So I'm assuming if it's reallocated just for PCH, I would assume at least 65, and I haven't looked at the numbers yet to see what how construction costs would be, but I'm assuming it's going to be probably more than that.
And the capacity issue, I wasn't clear as you rattled off the numbers. How much capacity and how much do you need for PCH, and how much is available?
So that calculation that I still need to do and look at to see which homes kind of see, I'd have to go and look based on direction from council I can make that determination and look to see how far down. We're under, we're probably about 380,000 gallons per day. So that's kind of the remaining amount of phase 2 and 3 for the treatment plant.
Do you know how much of that's not assessed, or how much is available if you were to take PCH? I'm not clear from you.
So right now, our treatment plant, it is 500,000 gallons per day. That's the maximum that we can dispose of in the ground. Phase 1 was about 120,000 gallons per day. So you minus 120 from 500, you get about 380. So 380,000 gallons per day could be transmitted to our treatment plant and where we can dispose of it.
But you've got phase 2 is supposed to do Melville Road, correct?
So that's what I'm just saying that if phase 2 and phase 3 are just totally thrown out, and this is purely directed towards PCH, you would have 380 gallons or 330,000 gallons are there. If phase 2 continued and you wanted to use the remaining capacity in phase 3, let me just kind of look. It's probably another 150,000 gallons per day.
150,000 is what you have left.
For phase 3. So if we continue with phase 2 and per plan and wanted to allocate phase 3 to the properties on PCH, that'd be about 150,000 gallons per day.
What's phase 2 alone?
Phase 2 is about 150,000 gallons per day.
Okay, so that's 380 minus 150, you're down to 230, 130, 230, what's the math?
So it's phase 1 was, it's actually 200,000 gallons per day.
Okay.
So, and then we have phase 2, which will be another 140,000 gallons per day.
Okay, so 340.
350.
Yeah.
340.
340.
And then you have 500,000 gallons per day, which is another 150,000 gallons.
And you're saying you don't know what what would be needed for PCH?
No, I have to look at the numbers and see. There's a combination of residential and commercial, and once I get direction, kind of to see what you guys want me to do, to look at it. If you want me to look at everything from PCH going all the way through, from the bridge going all the way over, or is it just residential you want me to look at? So I'm looking for direction from you to kind of see what you want me to look at and evaluate, and I'll provide that information.
Okay, but maybe you can help us out just a little bit by trying to quantify this. If you look at phase 2, which is Melville Road, there's, I don't know how many homes on that, and we look at from the bridge to city limits, just on PCH. I'm looking at Yolanda a little bit and say, I know we had 300 plus homes.
We had 320 homes.
So
All right, that's how we lost.
Destroyed.
Plus we have homes that are still there.
Right.
So if you said 500 homes, how does that compare to
So
Melville
just,
Road?
if you just give me the direction on what you want me to do, if you want me to evaluate residential, you want me to evaluate commercial, you want me everything on there, then I can be able to do that a little bit better than just rattling numbers. I feel a little bit more, I feel better if I had more time, direction, kind of look at the numbers, make sure that I got everything right, because we're just rattling numbers here back, and rather than taking time to make sure I get everything right and give you the correct numbers, because we're just rattling numbers.
I understand, but everybody just keep the conversations down low, because you're going to impede the ability of the microphone to pick up. If there's 500 homes, you got 150,000 gallons a day. I'm not holding you to it, but I'm just trying to see if we have a realm of reasonableness here.
I think the short answer is, Mayor, we don't at this time. The intent of this conversation was to, one, get buy-in from the community. Is this something that we need to explore, but what does that look like from council direction? So Rob and his team can go back and do the calculations and bring forward, are we looking at the whole of Malibu? Are we only doing something for the homes on PCH on the beachfront. So needing that direction before, and to speculate here could have a false pretext for the community, and we don't want to give that here, but we.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have 2 questions. One, for Malibu Colony, do you have an amount of what the assessment was for those property owners?
Well, actually, we were in the process of kind of developing that, so I don't have that number right now.
Okay. And then second, how many residential properties were in phase 2, not including the condos?
Phase 2, including, including the condos? I'd have to guess.
100,
It's-
150? I mean, it
it's-
doesn't seem like it's that many between the colony and the portion of Malibu Road.
The portion of the colony and Sarah Retreat was, I'm going to say it was over 200.
Okay.
But I'm just, without having that number right in front of me, it's.
And the Sarah Retreat homes are larger homes. They're typically 3-bedroom plus.
Right. Correct.
But unless somebody has another question, I want to ask one more thing. You've got 3 options, if I can summarize what you said. One is to take the existing wastewater plant, extend the line. Number 2 option is to connect into Hyperion. And number 3 is to put pocket plants or mini plants along PCH.
And then there's a fourth one of looking to see if there's a potential of Las Virgenes or another wastewater facility that's close by that we can connect to and see. So-
Right. Have you got any kind of a quantification about how these relate in cost to?
It's until I get direction on which properties and kind of what the scope is, you want me to look at kind of a thing.
I think it's a chicken or an egg thing, sorry, because it's like, I want to give direction and I want to know what the residents want, but without more information, it's hard for me to direct. So, and it's hard for there to be buy-in. What's the timeline? How much is it? What's the development? What is will we be able to open doors to development? So the conversation, I need more information to have a more robust conversation so that we're not here wondering what all of these little facts are, because it's such a big deal that I need more information for me to direct, or direct everything. Like I want to know I want to know all of it, you know?
After Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, and also,
You need to speak up.
this is a huge conversation. Right. I mean, for the most part, if not entirely, the people here are people to the east in the Byrne area. I mean, we've got another 2/3, 3/4, whatever of the city that we know doesn't want sewers. I mean, just start off, we know that. So the only thing I would even begin to think about is something specifically directed to the Byrne area. I wouldn't even be thinking about between here and there. I mean, just it's off the table as far as I'm concerned. So that's a non-starter. And I'd be shocked if the majority of the community, once we heard from them, disagreed with that. We have the big issue. I mean, Ed was very courageous in his comments. I mean, look, my house burned partially in the Franklin fire. I'm fighting with my insurance company. I'm underinsured. I know I'm not going to be the person who fixes and lives in that house. It's just not going to happen. And my challenges are nothing compared to people on the beach. I'm not going to do it. It's going to take me years to get the money that they owe me, and that's not going to be enough. And I know that's what a lot of people on the beach are going to be facing, and I hate to have to say that. So who are we doing this for? I mean, we want to do it for you who want to rebuild your house, but the cold, hard truth is a lot of you aren't going to be able to do that, even with a sewer. So we'd be actually doing this for the wealthy, even more wealthy people that buy these properties, and we'll build them up. We'll absolutely build them up. And I'm not saying that's a foregone conclusion, and I'm not saying that would prevent me from saying let's try to do something as best we can, but it's something we need to keep in this consideration. Who are we doing this for? We want to do it for you, but who are we really doing it for? Because are you really going to be doing this a year from now, or 2 years from now? Or are you going to run out of money? You're going to spend 3 years of your life trying to rebuild your house, and then realize you can't do it, and you spend a bunch of money. and a bunch of your life, and it's going to be more draining than 3 years of your life normally to get to that point. I mean, I'm internally I'm in tears for you all for this. But we need to talk about all of these things because this is all critical. But you know, if there's a way to do it, hook it in. The Hyperion one is the one I like best when I hear about it. Somehow legally limit it to like-for-like rebuilds. I don't know if you can limit it to people who had the land before the fire, but you know, I just don't want to build a system for a bunch of billionaires who are going to buy multiple lots and build monstrosities on PCH.
No, Bruce, I agree with you. There was an article in the New York Times over the weekend that talked about the cost of rebuilding houses. And that was before all these tariffs and all the rest of the stuff came in. And they were estimating it was like an additional $300,000 to $400,000. And I don't know what that number is going to be when all this stuff, if the stuff ever settles down. So I agree with you. And I think you're right. I mean, you know, there are, we got rules right now that say if you want to build on the beach, there's no limit to the size of the house you can build.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think if we put a sewer in, and you're right, I mean, if people come in, we better figure out how we're gonna deal with that, because that opens up the door to God knows what. And we wanna make sure that doesn't happen. Back to the stuff you were talking about, I know that regional water quality, I mean, did they have a say in what the hell we do? Because, you know, they've got a plan right now. And if we say, well, you know, we're gonna skip this and move to this, and how does that work? Do you have any sense of?
That's going to be a battle. But I think, you know, there are some things working towards our favor.
Okay.
You know, the disaster, the support from the various agencies, the state agencies, that might help contribute to maybe having those further discussions with the regional board. But that's something that would need to happen like soon to kind of get there.
Okay. And you know, and I don't disagree with Bruce. I think, you know, tying back into Hyperion, I mean, if you build it all up and down PCH, you're going to have God knows what additional construction can take place in there, right? I mean, and that's scary, I think, to a lot of people.
So with that, kind of want to go back to phase one. And when we set up our assessment district, we actually look at the actual benefits each property receives from that wastewater plant. And we assign wastewater allocations to those properties. And so in turns, it limits really what those property owners can actually do, because if they're coming back with like a 3-bedroom home and it's recalculate, oh, their wastewater for that right there is, you know, 70,000 or 70 gallons per day, based on their assessment, they're stuck with that amount. And if they try to develop something bigger, they're going to either have to come back to council to seek additional allocations or stick with that original development. So
and there's no reason for me to believe that if they had enough money and came back to council for additional allocations, they wouldn't get them.
Right. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's kind of like a method of how things are being kind of controlled with that in mind.
Well, so Trevor, given the zoning of these different areas, I mean, the city council ultimately controls the zoning of these various parcels, right? Mm-hmm. So in order to change the zoning and allow for a different use than a residential use, it would take going through and modifying the municipal code and local code.
General plan, local code, if you want to change the.
Right, so it's not just gonna be a simple of, okay, you had a residential property and now you want to build an apartment building. The zoning doesn't support that. And there would need to be a zone change in order to possibly do that type of thing, depending if it was a single family zoning or if it was a multifamily zoning. So we already do have controls based upon the size of the lot and the zoning as to how we can do things. And it's a multi-year process in order to make a commitment to changing it to any other type of zoning. You couldn't just suddenly put a hotel out there because you bought up 5 lots.
No, you need a lot of study and you need to go through a whole process that would take a while, but the council does control.
Yeah, and let me suggest to you that as a possibility. If somebody's got enough money and enough time, I mean, these people that are coming in, they're not worried about trying to rebuild tomorrow. I mean, they got the bucks to put on the table, they'll hang in there as long as they can, and I don't know who's gonna be on the council when that comes in front of somebody. Because the process of letting somebody else do something is not outside the, I mean, look how much pressure we've been under for the stuff that, you know, they wanted to build for us, that's not gonna go away. So, assuming we're gonna do something now that's gonna stop people in the future from doing something, I think is a pipe dream.
Right, but I think that our
It's a
actual
pipe dream.
council right now has shown the desire to even stop single-family homes. So to actually go through the process of having the opportunity to even contemplate the zoning of that type of a hotel or something like that is going to be daunting from now and into the future, because Malibu is rural and we want to stay rural.
And it's not now,
Right.
it's not 10 years from now, and it's not even 20 years from now. 100 years from now, you could look back possibly and see this is the event that changed the rural nature of this
And if
area.
the-
It's the
if
most
the-
valuable real estate. It's one of the most valuable real estate areas in the country right now. And it's there to be developed. Years ago, I represented a large, small privately owned company, like $1 billion company, small in the grand scheme of things, owned by a family. And a multi-billion dollar company managed to buy a toehold in the company because one of the family members sold out. And they then started making hell for the other shareholders. And they were like, you guys know we're not going to sell to you no matter what. They said, yes, you will. 50 years from now, you will. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not 10 years from now. But eventually, we will get our way. There is a ton of money that wants to develop this beach.
That's right.
Okay? And 100 years from now, you'll look back, potentially, and say, here's where the Mission
None of
Creek
us are
began.
gonna be here.
I don't care about that. Well, you know what? That's
We're the
exactly
residents at that point in time.
And that is the divide we have on this council. Those who don't care about the far distant future because they're not going to be here, and those of us who do.
All right, hold on a second, let's get some ground rules here. Right now, we're having a council discussion. When we get through, we'll come back to the audience and let you guys ask your questions, we could. Right now, we're trying to figure out where the council is.
I agree with Bruce. I mean, I think our job is to do whatever we can to keep this place as rural as we can for as long as we can. Period. Period. You know, look, this place is as valuable as it is because this is an oasis outside of a large metropolitan area. I mean, you don't have many of these. And if we lose this one, I don't want to think about it. So our job is to make sure whatever we do right now doesn't precipitate something happening in the future which can tear this place apart. So that's where I'm coming from. Yeah, sorry.
There was something he just mentioned that I wanted to ask because I'm an architect, and 3 years ago, council would not approve septic systems that have zero discharge. And new developments, nothing goes into the ground. Will Malibu City Council consider those septic systems from what we were just talking about?
We'll have to get to that point in a minute. We're still
Oh, okay.
That's the reason why I said, let's hold off the public comment.
Mayor, not to stop your conversation, but to bring it back so we can get some direction. So what we had wanted to do for the parameters of this discussion, have a very high-level initial discussion, get some feedback. Sounds like we're starting to get some of that, but that'll help us then have and pursue the additional conversations we need, whether that be with the Waterworks District, whether that be with the county. There's probably all sorts of legal things that we need to find out that may need to be done to pursue any one of these options. So trying to narrow that focus for this discussion so we can get that guidance.
Hold on a second. Mary Ann, did you have some things you would?
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to make it very clear that I want to make decisions based on facts, not fear, okay? So the facts are, we have very, very difficult zoning here, and it's here for a reason, and I totally respect it. And that's why I'm trying to ask the attorney as to what are the steps to show that it's a multi-year process to even contemplate that. And we have seen historically that council after council, regardless of whether they're viewed as a development council or against development council, they have chosen to err on the edge of caution and to not make changes. And I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future or even the long distance future. So that's just from that. I am interested in finding out more facts of the cost to this and how it is possibly going to benefit our residents. And if our residents that are on and own these properties are not going to be able to speed up their construction and get back in their homes in a timely manner and facilitate their rebuilding, then I'm not in favor of this, or if the costs are going to be prohibitive or anything else. But the most important thing to me is I want the residents to have the opportunity to take advantage of something. And if we can do something right here and now that's going to benefit those smaller properties from Las Tunas to the east boundary of our city, I think we need to take the time to actually explore that and make a rational, respectable decision as if it's the right thing for our city to do now, because I don't want it in 10 years that we suddenly discover that we have lost all these original homeowners along that place because the costs were just too prohibitive, and it would have been less expensive and easier for them to get their homes back if we had taken these steps. So that's my position.
I'm in agreement with that.
All right. Let me see if we can bring this down to some kind of a consensus from the council, and then let's have some feedback from the audience as well. First thing I'm trying to state, and let me see if I can nod your heads on this. First thing we know is that there is an acceptance of sewers if it's accretive to what we want to accomplish for the homeowners. There are people here that now want to put sewers in, as opposed to, I would have said a year ago, that would have been a death wish for anybody who wanted to bring it to the council.
I think that they need more information.
Well, yeah,
Even,
but-
I mean, I don't want to even say that residents want to do that. I think that they need to know what it costs and the timeline.
Well, you're exactly right. And I want to take this to part two. Please go ahead.
I actually agree with 90% of what Marion just said, so whatever that was, that made sense to me.
Hans, did you get that recording?
I want that quoted.
If I may, Mayor, and to Councilmember Conrad's point, and I think this is what you're trying to do, and Councilmember Conrad, it's about establishing parameters so we can do that. So if you say just for Burn area, just Beachside, or all of Burn area, or there's, if this, then that, we'll be able to hone in and chase what is available and what that looks like. And so that's the direction we're seeking, and bring back that kind of plan and what that cost would be.
Let me say it a little differently. This all started with what I would refer to as a go, no-go question. If it's going to cost less to put the sewers in than it is to put the septic tanks in, and it's not going to affect the timeline, that's a go.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to find out. Is there a go, no-go decision here? And I think the first step for that is there's two questions to be asked. How much is it going to cost per house that we serve, and how long will it take to get it done? I think that's the key question that we're asking of Rob. Of all there's five options.
Yeah, I think that's too simplistic, though.
He said four, but I want to give the fifth one, and that is keep the septic system. The septic system as an option. And we talk about, and by the way, I've heard this number be all over the place, kind of 100,000, 150,000 to 500,000 for a septic system to go in. And we haven't even asked the question, can you keep the one you already have? So I think one of the options needs to be, what's the option of keeping the septic systems in place? But I do think we want to know what the go, no-go decision is for putting it.
I just think after that, just like Alexa said, is give us the parameters if it's just the burn area, Oceanside, or just that part of it really helps me give you the numbers.
Here's what I've heard. I've heard from the people in Big Rock who said we don't need a septic system up there. So I think
Sewer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting old, I promise. So I think, at least my idea, it would be the burn areas, and you'd like to have it hooked up to Hyperion, all right, to prevent it, because if you bring it all the way up into our wastewater treatment system, you can bet your life that all the businesses they're gonna jump on that in a heartbeat. So, I mean, look, we just gotta, you know, I'm just saying, if we're gonna do this, I'd like to make sure we've got it contained in such a way that the options for bad stuff happening have been minimized as much as we can. That'd be my.
Well, before, let me say one thing. I think one of the directions we need to pass to Rob, my fear is if you run a sewer line past anybody and you say, well, you can't connect to it, it's for the people down the street. Time will pass when they come back and say, I want to connect.
And they will.
And they will. Bruce, go ahead.
So one, I think, thing we needed to establish, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get, is whether we're just like absolutely against doing a sewer or not. And I'm not, and I suspect that no one up here is going to say they're against it no matter what, come hell or high water. Then the only question is, under what circumstances would we agree to one and what kind? Now, your go, no-go, that you said two things. One is, will it make the rebuilds less expensive, and will it not add time to them? I agree that if the answer to those questions is, if it would be more expensive than septic, which I can't imagine it will be, but if it would be more expensive, and if it will add more time, that's an easy no. But I don't think if it's the other way around, it's necessarily a go. That's where I thought it was a little too simplistic, because we still need to think about the ramifications of it that are beyond getting it done quickly and inexpensively, or less long and less expensive. We still need to have that conversation, but the first thing to do is figure out, is it even a possibility of a go? Not is it a go, but is it a possibility of a go? And Helen keeps saying, and she's right, we need more information, and we need other agencies to say something.
I want to hear from Virginius Water District. I want to hear from other agencies and what they have to offer. They're offering their communities. I met with them. I don't know if they're at capacity, but why not entertain other options?
They also discharge you.
Tertiary treatment, we're not even looking.
Right, there's other options as well.
Las Virgenes is dying to get hands on more water.
Well, that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've met with them a number of times. They'd love to have some of this water pumped up there.
Okay, well, let's go back to Rob's thing.
Just real quick, that is one of the options that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I have a good colleague that works up in there and is working on the pure water system.
Yeah, they've asked me twice now, right?
And I know that system very well. I just need the parameters, if it's just the fire rebuilds within PCH. And just give me the area, because that'll help me develop strategies and look at too. Also know if you're, the thought process that you bring it all the way down over here, that other properties may connect and kind of do it later on. Remember, the limiting factor.
There's a capacity, right?
The limiting factor you have is how much water you can give rid of. And if you're already taking that capacity out, it's gone. Because they don't have
Camel's nose under the tent. Once it's there, it starts pushing further in.
Yeah, right, but remember, what he's saying though is our plant does have a maximum capacity. No matter what, no. There's not enough land and enough ability to dispose of things.
Somebody can buy more land and build another plant.
To go, please, let's have the discussion up here. We're the ones that have to make the decisions, all right? All right, Bruce, I couldn't agree with you more, and my concern is, when we say the plant is at capacity, Rob keeps saying it's at capacity because we can't get rid of the wastewater.
Right.
If the wastewater can be pumped to Las Virgenes,
Yes.
the size of the plant suddenly gets bigger. I think.
Money answers a lot of questions.
Right.
So
Or you can do the ocean outfall, either one.
If you were to reclaim the water and keep the water, which is obviously smart, is there that same capacity?
It's no matter what, the regional board will want to see you have the ability to dispose 100% of the wastewater from in there. And then, yes, it is. And have that ability, because they're conservative. They want to make sure that if there's zero recycled water, they want to have the ability to actually dispose of it legally without a permit.
But even that's the wastewater control board today. Who knows what they'll be 20 years from now?
They haven't changed.
Look at our country.
Yeah.
Things change overnight.
Yeah. All right, so let's go down the list of what we have here. I agree with Bruce. My comment about go, no go, it's more about no than it is about go. All right. but it's always a business decision. Is it practical to do this before we get too far down the road?
Agreed.
And that's what I'm asking. Let's put that as parameter number one. No matter which option you pick, and I keep going back to, I think there's 5. The 5th one is we just put septics in. We need to know which ones of these are an automatic no. About timing and
And can I add one more option that I think everybody would have probably, well, Ed might not love it, but, you know, what about finding a way to facilitate the less expensive, quicker development of the septics? What about us finding a way to get the state and the feds, as some have spoken, to get this done on a mass structure so that the people can build the same houses back again and not have a
Well, I was going to present another idea along this, because we keep talking about septic systems, and we say the septic systems have to be protected by a seawall.
Right.
What if we had an assessment district that put the seawalls in, and then you could put the city would pay for the master seawall along the coast, and you could put your septic system in.
The city would pay, or the
assessment
And then we become responsible for the seawall?
The assessment.
Okay. So, and then you said the septic goes behind that?
We also become responsible for the highway.
We become responsible for the highway.
Folks, everyone is kind of talking over each other in the audience, and the council's having their discussion on here. So if we can just let council have their
Can you please
conversations.
mic them? Can you hand them that mic so we can hear them?
Yeah, will you pass the mics to whoever's speaking, please?
It's still picking it up.
Well, it's still
Thank
picking
you.
up and the recording will have it.
No.
They want to hear.
We can't hear it.
All right.
Okay, so it sounds to me
You're
like.
saying That's why I just kept it over here.
It seems to me that the question is, where do we want, if we put a sewer, where do we want it to go? Do we want it to be limited to the burnout properties, right? The residential properties. We'd like to get an idea of how much it would cost to do that. Okay, so we can go back and take a look, divide that by the number of houses we have. We'd like to get a perspective of how long that would take to get something like that built. And I'd like to hear where you think the speed bumps are in terms of getting that done. I mean, we're gonna hit regional water quality, whoever the hell, Caltrans, whatever the heck, okay, how that's gonna work. And it seems to me at some point in time, we've gotta have a discussion with the state and Caltrans, because if we need a seawall not only to protect if there's septics, but to protect the highway. Right, and it seems to me if we're responsible for building a seawall to take care of the highway, we should get some money from somebody to help us do that. So that's all I know.
All right, who else wants to talk on the council?
I mean, I agree. I think there's a lot of factors at play. I would be interested, there's so many questions. Would the city chip in? This is their highway. It's now
The state.
The state, thank you. There's just so many different options that I think my direction would be to find out answers to these options so that we can present it to also the residents. They need to know where they're budgeting. They need to know what their timeline is. So I want to know if it goes to Hyperion, how much is that? How long will that take? How many agencies will that be? If it goes to Civic Center, it's the same thing. Does that open up development? Can we pick and choose? Will that piss people off? There's still so many questions, it's hard for me, but my direction to you would be find answers and to have these discussions and then bring it back to council. Thank you.
To
Bruce, anything
all
else?
5 options.
Not for now.
I'm interested in, yeah.
That's what, if it's
Yeah.
research into all 5
Research.
options,
Yeah.
that's what we need to know. But if it's burn area only and Hyperion only, that's where we're looking for those parameters so we can start looking at it.
What's the quickest for residents? And the least, I need to know that.
Nobody knows that yet.
That's why you have to look into all of the options. Yeah.
Well, that's what the direction that
That's
we
my
need.
direction. Stop directing.
So my vote is beachfront properties only, residential properties only, Hyperion first choice, then whatever additional secondary options there might be.
And when we say beachfront, are we talking only the wet sand? We're not talking about the dry sand homes, right? We're talking about the wet sand.
All the burn.
I think maybe have Las Tunas and East, and then have La Costa and Carbon Beach factored in there. So maybe broken out, so they're kind of independent, because yes, they are the dry sand beaches. They do have a little bit more land. Las Tunas, or I'm sorry,
Las
I
Flores.
apologize, Las Flores. Thank you very much for that clarification. Las Flores East.
Okay, that's.
And then La Costa and Carbon Beach they've got more, so.
Well, I mean, does La Costa and Carbon Beach need what we're talking about? Because I didn't think they did.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes, they need to.
No, I mean, I know they'd like it, but I mean, is it the same geological or?
Yes.
It's the same issue?
I don't think it's
Okay.
gonna take staff any additional, it's not gonna increase their, time doing that evaluation.
Fine, I didn't
So.
appreciate that they had the same problem.
I'm sorry, look at the damage that was done at La Costa Beach several years ago with their whole septic system. The beach closed, the waves, the storms came in, uncovered, pulled it, it destroyed it there.
Okay.
And that's a big
All right.
beach.
All right,
Sorry.
Keep going.
And then the other thing I want to do along this, I think for the council, what we need to consider is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, is putting zoning limitations on the beachfront homes so that you can't have multiple lots bought up and merged in together. And that's something I wanted to do, and it's been distracted from this whole thing, so that we have those controls and we can limit the mansionization of the beachfront properties.
All right. My 2 cents on this, to give you some direction, I think we've got the 5 options, but I think some of these are going to die away really quickly. And the Hyperion plant, I think, is an excellent idea, but I can just imagine everybody that's got a pipeline for that sewer is going to go, oh, Malibu is going to do an upgrade in order to be able to hook up to this. I've always wanted, and it's going to be a pork barrel deal, will never be able to afford what they want to put in at Torrance or wherever it goes by. So it's a great idea, but I think it's going to die away quickly. I agree with Mary Ann. Let's look at this Hyperion, but we also need to look at our wastewater treatment plant and see what that option is. But let's start from the idea of maybe at the bridge and see, I think you're going to run into a capacity limit real quick. And my fear is that if it goes by a building, even though we say it can't get hooked up today, I'm with Bruce, somebody may come back and say you can't hook it up. So, hold on a second, Joe.
What do you mean by the bridge, Doug?
The lagoon?
Why would it go that far?
It's just because you got to start somewhere.
But
it-
I think the fire's a mile down the road.
Started the first burnout.
The first burn house. We're talking about the burn house, but you're talking about running this pipeline down the center, down PCH. And that's going to be a draw for people to say, I want to hook up to it. And we need to figure out where the capacity
Why it
limits
needs to go
are.
the other direction.
Well, I fully agree with going the other direction, but if you can't hook up to Hyperion, where are you going to go?
Well, how about another plant to that direction? Is that a possibility? No,
Let's
just
have,
like we built,
let's have the discussion first.
just like we built a plant here, I mean, is there a plant that could be built to the east?
All right, but let's start with the options first. Let's do that. I think what we want you to do is to cast away the ones quickly that don't meet the question of no or go. And if it's going to cost $1 million per house, that's obviously enough. All right, back to you, Joe.
Thanks, Mayor. We were just trying to consolidate the direction because we heard a number of different things from different council members. But we hear review the 5 options. We're looking at the burnout beachfront properties. Looking at the expenses, if there's any alternative sources for some of those expenses, the time, and the hurdles. Consensus?
And
Okay.
alternate, like, grant money, or if the state's gonna chip in, if we're helping them with their. That's all in there?
First it's total,
Yeah.
right? First it's total cost, and then depending on yes or no, it's
First, it's total cost, looking at, we bring back what's feasible, what meets this criteria. Out of that short list, we have total costs associated, and then we start looking at how do we finance it. Maybe it is an infrastructure financing district, or an assessment district, or climate resiliency district. There's a lot of options, and then we look at partnerships between the other entities. But first things first is making sure that what Joe just mentioned, that's what we're looking for.
I agree with all that, but just as a practical matter, does anyone here think that we're going to be able to figure this out, much less implement it faster than people would just do what they need to do?
No, point.
Absolutely not. They're already on East Carbon, they're already building.
But you can grandfather in your systems until.
That's the position I agree with.
We've got some points here. And there were questions from the floor. We said we'd come back to you real quick. I'd like to start from this end over here. If you have a question, just speak up really loud. Ed, you first in the back, and then we'll start working our way down the line. But let's keep it short and be quick.
Short and quick. I worked on the Civic Center for nearly 10 years for French Hill. We did the system that he was discussing. It works. The difference was that the great chance we had was to take the water, call it water for the moment, and we had a zone going through the Santa Monica Mountains with a tertiary treatment, hit the zones, but formed a giant fire barrier that was always green, or at least manageable, that pumped water up there. So there are many ways to disperse the effluent, given the quality of it. The other thing is storage. From a planning perspective, the way you do is you have to determine the holding capacity of Malibu. What do you want it to be? What is the maximum number of people? What is the demographic? Unless you do that, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to end up with a flat argument like you've been doing. You've got to understand, it's numbers, you're right. How much it costs, God only knows, really. So you've got to sit down and say to yourself, we have 15,000 people living here, there. Maybe it's going to be 25,000. That is so much, what do you know? That's so much effluent, isn't it? A third of it is commercial, that's so much. Why is that so difficult to understand? That's basic urban planning. First year, you people have got to hire people that know what the hell they're saying and doing, instead of trying to become them yourself. So we get that number, you figure out your water, you figure out your flow, give it to Rob. Rob works the numbers out. If it's in the form of effluent, in the form of injection, for example, huge injection areas going west of the Civic Center, all those hills, all the Odlinson property, all that is great soil for injection. Not low-cost slide, but it works. So now we have injection fields. So we don't spend $1 million fighting the city of Santa Monica, everybody in the world. Here are these rich bastards from Malibu trying to push their sewer on it. God forbid it breaks any day, but yes, it's going to be good stuff because it's out of Malibu, right? So the reality of the situation is you need to look at this process as a normal urban planning process and stop trying to solve it. That's asking my doctor, what do you think should be the next thing we do? Okay, I just don't understand why you sit here and waste everybody's time trying to solve something that has already been solved. Historically, as I said a long time ago, even the Romans had water.
All right.
I take issue with us wasting people's time. We're being educated, and we don't have the legal ability to get together to talk to one another without doing this. You don't have to be here. I appreciate your comments from
Well, then
you
let
don't
us
have
talk
to be here
more.
listening to us.
Why don't you just sit here and don't say anything, and we'll all talk amongst ourselves. I heard the woman over there say something I wanted to hear more about. I'm serious.
Me too.
And hold on, everybody, realize, we're the ones that have to make the decision up here. We're trying to be informed.
Well, no, we're voting for you, by the way, and we're making the decision. Well, about that.
Listen,
All we want to do is
we're all,
solve the
we're all
problem.
volunteers up here, basically. Amen. Just trying to
We're all
do-
volunteers.
Go ahead.
Okay, real quick, I do want to echo that. Sewer planning is a long-range planning thing, and cities hire companies to do master plans for long-range wastewater management. This is just something that's done. And right now, we're trying to put a Band-Aid on a tough situation. Rob is doing some, quick thinking with the tools he has, but really, guys, he's picking apart plans that took years to make, years and years and years to put together. There are plans, and the plans are being implemented now, the city already made. And to do what he's talking about is undoing them, so just realize that. Number two, there's a lot of misinformation going around about how much these septic systems cost to put in for a rebuild. people are throwing around numbers of $300,000. It doesn't cost that much. It doesn't.
That's right. Absolutely right.
Parts are around $40,000, double that.
We have a
The
great wall
installation,
system.
the
walls,
the
seawall.
finish. 150, your seawall is what costs the money. It's the seawall. Okay? It sure is expensive, yes.
Just for the plastic.
It sure is, and they're not all the same, so you can't do a one-size-fits-all number on seawalls.
Okay.
And okay.
All right. Who
Number
wants to-
three, this is really important. There's no injection capacity on the east side. Don't even think about it. There's none. I'm done.
You're right.
Ed, you go next. I mean, Red.
Okay. I kind of want to echo what Andrew said over there, but I have a unique position that I've designed a lot of seawalls in this town for many, many years. And first of all, a seawall will cost probably 3 times to 4 times the amount of the septic system. So that roughly about $8,000 to $10,000 a linear foot for seawall. And that's pile-supported seawall. You got different conditions, different size septic systems that are going to be behind that seawall because you got different size houses. Okay. Also, the seawall gets more expensive the closer you get to the ocean because it's got to go deeper and it's got to go higher. You bring that seawall back, now you're looking at about $8,000 a linear foot. You have a 50-foot wide lot times $8,000 a linear foot, you're looking at $400,000 for that seawall. And the septic system is costing $110,000, $120,000.
Can I ask a
So
question?
that's,
I fundamentally don't understand this. Do you need the same seawall if you have the sewer, or does that obviate the need for the seawall?
no, well, you would need a seawall to protect Pacific Coast Highway, okay? Because of the Coastal Commission's requirement that we include sea level
So
rise.
leaving aside whether
Yeah.
the state or the feds ought to be paying for that, leaving that aside, though,
Right.
you still need the seawall whether you have a sewer or a septic.
That's right.
And the seawall costs the same thing, leaving aside who's going to pay for it.
But the closer the seawall gets to the road, the less expensive it is. And also,
So the septic, so
Where do we-
eliminating septic eliminates a little bit of space for where the seawall goes?
Yes.
Not dramatic.
No,
though.
Bruce, what happens is the seawall that you have for a septic is farther out in the ocean.
Good.
Bigger, costs a lot more money. What Reg is saying, if you eliminate the septic, then you bring the seawall right to the highway and it costs less.
but also,
A lot cheaper because
And actually,
what I wanted to say, what I wanted
One
to
at a
say,
time, please.
what I wanted to say, and finish my thought here, please, is we were talking about where to start this whole thing. Carbon Beach is leaving you guys in the dust. I have many
Wonder why.
coastal reports, fire rebuild coastal reports that have already been done on East Carbon Beach, and they're in the process. Okay? So I think East Carbon, from basically that beach between Carbon and La Costa, that would probably be the place where you would end the sewer. Okay? So, because, Carbon Beach, they have the money right now.
Right.
They're gonna do it.
That's why I said that's where I thought it should start.
okay,
Could I just make a comment? I just want to make sure that, because the seawall is to protect, the only reason you're allowed to have a seawall is to protect your on-site wastewater treatment system, right? The wall back at PCH would be doing dual duty, right? It would be a retaining wall, retaining PCH, right? Because of whatever elevation differences there are. And in some cases, it's up to 15 feet, right? And then it would also, for sea level rise, would then also have to act as a seawall eventually in the future, or now on the wet beaches.
all right, let's keep going and quickly. Ma'am, go ahead.
I have a question regarding, if we were in an administrative vacuum and it would be decided that we could put the sewer in, realistically, what is the construction time? I've never had a project on time, ever. So if it takes more than 2 years, and we're counting permitting, and then people need to construct their homes, if it goes beyond that 2 years, and I'm being very, very generous with the 2 years of that happening, right? If people finish at that 2 years, and they don't have a sewer line in or finished or connected or what have you, then what happens? Everybody's got to get a temporary system, or they have to have a system, period. Right? So I think people need to think about that, and really, all of this cogitating about, can we get it, do we get it, whatever we do, I think that construction of any of these homes on Pacific Coast Highway is not a 2-year, not gonna have, the sewer line, the construction of that sewer line on Pacific Coast Highway, I don't think happens that quick.
All right, well, that's part of the no-go. All right, in the back, real quick. Go ahead.
Okay, so personally, my parents and I, we would wait 4 or 5 years to build a house if a sewer line was being constructed. I think it would take that long anyways, unless prefabrication was allowed, but HCD probably is going to delay that process, so not worth discussing now. As it relates to the cost, yeah, I understand the AOTS is probably less than $150,000, but the seawall pushed in front of it is what costs so much money. And if you can have it just a retaining wall for PCH, everybody would also be able to retain the sand on the beach and keep it a beach.
Yeah.
A lot of the houses on Big Rock, you could walk under the houses and there actually was places to sit on the beach. If we all have to build AOWTSs, that's gonna go away and there will be seawalls, it'll be a monolith of concrete along the ocean, and the entire tanning area of Big Rock will no longer exist. Thanks.
Dean, you had a question?
Yeah, so I'll try to be quick. All I would ask is take everything into consideration, because we're talking about one subject at a time, maybe a couple, but the reality of the situation, Army Corps is hitting Big Rock Beach this week, and the bulkheads are all burned out. My biggest concern dealing with them is to make sure things don't cave in on the properties and cause us more problems. So all this is interconnected. We have rules of engagement today based on the baseline that we're allowed to do things. You guys have said the rebuild center's open, we can come in anytime and get rolling. So some of us are gonna get rolling. And the longer we talk about these issues, it's mute. It won't matter. So please make them quickly. And I don't know how we do that, but we need to make decisions a lot more quickly than we are.
All right. Marissa, yeah.
He said.
All right. Brian?
So
So I want to dovetail in on what Dean said, which is that the build center's open, right? But we have to design these houses around septic systems also. So like, where do we put it? Where can we, how big can it be? Where, as far as its PV, you want us to make them wider rather than higher now, but yet we don't have a lot of room on the beach for septics. So that's one concern. The second thing would be, you can't look at Big Rock as the same as Tuna, as the same as La Costa, same as Carbon. The reason why Carbon's going, yes, they do have money, but they're also very deep lots. They already have septic systems that weren't affected by the fire, and they rarely get water that comes under their houses. But as you work your way that way, the beaches do get less and it becomes more of a concern. But those who have working systems, whether you do a sewer or not, they should be grandfathered in if they're working, so that you can then, I don't have a problem with having a hookup for it, the sewer, if it ever comes. But I'm not gonna sit around for 4 or 5 years and wait for a sewer to come so that I can rebuild. That doesn't work. And I shouldn't have to build all this other stuff to hook up to a sewer 5 years from now. Like, I don't know exactly how to say it, except that it shouldn't be, time is the most important thing, really. And if you want, I hear you that you don't want big development, and I understand that, and I understand that sewers could bring that. I think that's an administrative thing you could do to maybe stop or do something with zoning, but I do think that with the sewer coming in, it's only if it makes it more feasible for those that don't have the ability to get a septic because of the topography of their beach or whatever. That would be the only reason to do it, and that would be because they want to rebuild, and that's the only way they can. But otherwise, there's no need for sewers if there's some way that they can actually, like you said, if it's cheaper for them to put in a septic. But a septic is not just a septic, it's a septic and a seawall.
Go ahead.
No, wait,
So,
Yeah, I'll go next. It's fine. I'll go next. Go ahead.
my first thing is Lauren and Reg. geotechnical engineers. They know an awful lot. One of the things I know, when I lived on Sirks Way about 45 years ago, we had that same request for a sewer system. And because of the Big Rock slide, and because that slide plane is 40 to 80 feet below the PCH, it was ruled impossible at that time. A lot of things has changed, as Reg and as your Lauren Doyle can assess about. My point is exactly what the other homeowners are saying. Time is of the essence. If you keep it simple, if you allow certain liberties that geotechnically, people like Reg and Jeff Holt and even Don Kowaleski, Don's not working anymore, but my point is that issue goes away when you decide to, for instance, allow zero emission septic systems. Yes, they cost a little bit more, but then the whole idea of the seawall going back towards PCH becomes much better. I want to talk about something a little bit beyond that, because I have a client who says, what are we going to do? Existing home burned down, it was a one-car garage. I want to know with what applications we come into, with pre-existing non-conforming conditions, only having a one-car garage, can we deal with that?
That's another
Okay.
time.
The other issue
So
was.
you go to the rebuild center, they can answer your question.
Okay, what I know from Miami-Dade County, the sewer systems they're doing there, I'm originally from Miami, the smaller a sewer system is, the micro systems, much, much greater expense per house. Keep that in mind, and please just keep it simple. Thanks.
Go ahead.
So I want to address something that Bruce and I think everyone here is concerned about, which is the development. I agree 100%, you want to keep Malibu as it is. However, if we continue what we're doing now, and I'm not blaming anybody, but if we continue what we're doing right now, there will be none of us around. Because if it takes 3 to 5 years for our houses to be built, forget it. We're not going to be here because we're not going to be able to afford it. So whether it's for the seawall or the septic or the, whatever it is, we need to make decisions much faster than we are going right now. Otherwise, trust me, not 100 years, 5 years from now, the developers will be all over this place. And it'll be completely different.
It'll happen if we make the decision today.
They're already here today. All right, let's go over here.
But we can use that. We can try as much with zoning and with other ways, we can try to restrict it a bit.
Hi, so I'm gonna sort of beat a dead horse, but I really feel strongly about, especially the houses between Las Flores and Tuna, that you guys do whatever you can to work with the state, because I really do believe that it's the state's responsibility. They can, Army Corps of Engineers are already here, they can send a new team, and they can just do a seawall straight down, but whatever, and so that.
They said I talked to them about that, they say they can and they would, but the federal government's telling them to do it.
Okay, so that's what I said this like a month ago, and I really feel strongly about this, that we can sit here and there was someone that was in the rebuild center, because I'm a frequent flyer there, I go twice a week to ask questions, and very helpful. That, individual people, everyone's like, we have these group meetings and the rest, but then we all go to our houses and figure out what the F are we gonna do with our own situation. And I live up in Big Rock, so I don't live on the beach, but it breaks my heart because I know the people that lived on the beach, and they don't have the resources to rebuild. They just don't. And so when this gentleman, I don't know where the hell he went. Anyways, he said, I'm getting the sense that it's going to be eminent domain and the government's going to take over because people are not going to be able to afford. And I also heard from geology, the code 110.2.56, that if you live in the slide area, you actually cannot sell to developers, that you have to be able to build yourself.
What? There's another code section that may mitigate that.
Oh. So anyways, that was yesterday's, as I mentioned, it's just.
Goodness, does everybody want to take a collective step outside and go get a drink of water?
So, anyways, I really think that this is not as complicated as it's being made. It's whoever needs to talk to the people in the state and the feds, like, I don't know who's got it, but like, get it going, tell them to come in. These houses held up PCH, and it's gonna collapse in the ocean unless we get these seawalls. And so there's gotta be somebody who knows somebody to get this done. And the septic thing, you know, whatever, people can put in their septic tanks, but it's the real seawall is the problem.
Sorry to interrupt. Thank
Expense.
you, Megan. Who in the city does these conversations? Is it up to council? Is it the city manager? Who calls the state or Caltrans and says, we're thinking about doing this? Is there a partnership?
It's not the city council.
It's us? No. So are there conversations happening at that level?
Once direction is
Oh,
given.
oh my God,
No.
this was like a month ago, guys.
Call Dwayne
No,
Gibson.
so let me expand on what I'm saying. For example, council
Please,
took action.
please.
Council took action on taking a position for ask to the governor's office. That authorizes staff, once that direction is given, to then have and engage in those conversations, because we want to make sure that we're not obligating the city to anything that the council didn't advise in their policy capacity to do so. So that's the sequence of events that takes place. The council has given direction just to talk about, for example, the septic tanks and some of the debris cleanup and all of that was taking place. So that's how then we reach out, we speak to our counterparts at the state, usually deputy chiefs of staff in the governor's office, reaching out to, sending the letter up to the governor and all that. So that's the process by which we start having on the leadership level those conversations with the governor or other federal teams, whoever it might be, to get the job done.
There has to be a policy discussion and decision from our council that then we can implement on the administrative
Yeah,
side.
execute.
That doesn't mean we don't keep our relationships with all of the different offices, and state offices, on things that we may be working on. But when there's big things like this or a big policy decision, we have to have that direction. from
So
them.
we can give direction today for you to have that discussion about a seawall, a bulkhead for Caltrans and PCH, and if the state will, okay, great.
Who makes the phone call? Is that you make the phone call, is
Or
the manager
staff.
or staff?
Hold on a second.
Or two?
Let's just, think about this. We're a city manager form of government. The city manager is the CEO of the city,
Yes.
not the mayor. As much as you know, people want me to be the CEO when they call up and they want something, I'm not. It's the city manager that's the CEO. We set policy, and that's the reason why we're trying to have this discussion up here, is to make sure we know what the policy is, so we can instruct the professionals who are in this conversation, just as you heard with Rob, and I know people here, and here, just like you. Let's do this. Let's kind of work through this because we're way behind schedule. Norm, go ahead.
Two things. In all my work as an engineer, when somebody else's property is falling down on my property, it is a responsibility of the uphill property to build a retaining wall so that his land does not fall upon mine. This is related to, obviously, PCH, okay? Second, I'm very short here. Pacific Coast Highway is a national defense corridor. It runs all along the ocean, you know, all the way up. And so the federal government should step in and help preserve PCH.
That was said before you showed up.
Pardon?
That was already argued before you showed up. You're right.
Okay, I think it's very important. Thank you.
In the back there.
In terms of timelines, you can let people grandfather in their existing systems. You can let people repair their existing systems. Let people repair their existing bulkheads. That'll get us to the sewer if the sewer is the best option. One area not talked about that much is La Costa Beach. There are no seawalls on La Costa Beach. If everybody has to put in these advanced tanks, there's going to be 80 new seawalls that are going to stand for 100 years. If you believe the Coastal Commission that seawalls cause public beach erosion, that would be a great thing to avoid, which the sewer would help with.
Yep. Madeline, go ahead.
Hi, it's Madeline Whitfeld. I think a lot of people have said a lot of smart things in this room. And I think the most important thing is that we don't want seawalls to the extent we can. If we have to have them, we want them back against the highway, to protect the highway. We need to have a sewer in order to do that. We need to have it in. one thing I do think that we can't pick and choose who's gonna hook up to the sewer, because if it's gonna be X expense, when you skip, every house you skip and every building you skip, the price for who's left in it are gonna be, you know, if you're putting a line past someone's property, they need to be hooked up, and they need to be paying for that. And lastly, don't just think of this as, I love my neighbors, I love the homeowners, I've lost my home, I'm a fire survivor. Hardly anyone lives in Malibu who hasn't lost their home. But I think it's really important for us to think about what's really important to the Malibu people. We don't want to be swimming in polluted water. We've had huge amounts of polluted water. I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of having raised platforms with pipes coming down and being exposed, and then what if there's no sand left? What are they going to leach them into? So I don't think it's very practical at this point to think about septic systems. And the last thing is, I had to build an advanced treatment system, and by the time we finished, we could have hooked up to the existing system here. It really is, it was expensive in 2017, it's much more expensive now.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I still don't understand totally the seawall for the road versus the seawall for the septic. But if I have it correctly, the seawall for the septic is in addition to and further seaward than the one for the highway.
Let's call it bulkhead.
Now someone had, okay, thank you. Someone mentioned, and I had talked about this at a prior meeting, the public trust issue. And I agree with what Marilyn said about seawalls are actually not good for the environment, for the overall coast. But people who live on the beach, I would think, would want a seawall further out because, as someone said, and it makes sense to think, aren't you going to lose your land as the ocean continues to encroach closer to the highway, if not to the highway? My understanding is you don't own the land at that point. You have a house, but it's sitting on property you don't own, and that can affect the future.
But is the beach receding because of the wave action against the seawall?
Yes.
Or is the, well, I'm just
Not the only
putting in the
reason.
chicken and the egg, but exactly. So there's a lot of reasons why the beach erosion happens, and the seawalls do have an effect.
But isn't the further out your seawall is, the more of your land which is necessarily protected?
Yes.
True.
Well,
Yes,
so
and
engineer
no, that's the
explain
yes.
Well, I deal with this every day, guys, okay, every day. And the fact of the matter is, the Coastal Commission and State Lands Commission are against seawalls because seawalls form a barrier between private property and public property. And on a sandy, eroding beach, you would get a landward retreat of that mean tide line. And in the burn area here, we have like even a 1928 mean high tide line that goes right through the center of these homes.
That's right.
Okay? So if they had their chance, they would only be able to rebuild half the house.
Except the
if they were
governor has
using that
solved
mean high tide line.
The governor has solved that, though. He said
The governor has solved that, but the point I'm trying to make here is the seawall becomes the barrier for a landward retreat of the mean high tide.
That's what I thought. So if we were to go up a sewer, and the coast, and therefore you cannot have a seawall beyond the one that's holding up the highway, you have the risk of actually not owning any property, right? Just the building that's sitting on the ocean.
Over time.
Well, some houses already.
There's no way right now to determine the location of the line between state tidelands and upland private property. It can't be done.
Yeah.
I know. I sued State Lands Commission over this on Sea Level Drive.
My common sense, and just anecdotally, I think there are going to be houses, if they don't have a seawall, they're going to be sitting right on top of the ocean, mean high tide line. It's going to be pretty obvious that there's no land that belongs to the homeowner under that house.
Let's move on, because we're
Wait, this is really important. You own what your assessor says you own and you pay taxes on. Some lots down at La Costa go 300 feet out in the water.
Yeah.
And you pay taxes on that.
Doesn't mean you own it.
No, you do own it, but the state lands has a jurisdictional overlay. Okay? And they're the ones that force you to go to the State Lands Commission. And that's where they bring in, when we used to have pirate ships pulling up on the beach, that's why they exist. I fight with them in Lake Tahoe. They have control in Lake Tahoe, state lands, everything. that, you've got to understand, they own way out. I've won many cases against the state lands and stuff fighting that issue. I said, then fine, then the state can give my property owner all their taxes back since the original construction or this construction, and they'll own the little lot where there's seawall there.
Okay, we're getting far away from
You
this.
gotta know this kind of stuff. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Let's quickly go ahead, we're gonna bring this to a close. Carl, go ahead.
Howard.
Howard, okay.
You know, we can go back and forth about who's gonna own what and how many rich people there's gonna be and what's gonna happen in 100 years from now. Or we can think outside the box. We can act like when we start a tech company. We can run fast and break shit and worry about it later and fix it. Because if we don't do that now, these people aren't gonna have homes. That's the problem with this whole scenario. That, you guys have to tell, them, and they have to tell you, and you have to tell them, you need to give them direction, what to do. They have to think for themselves. They have to do what's best for the city. That's what they're hired to do. And, if we trust them, we have to let them do it. You have to give them direction and let them go and do this stuff. Because if not, Rob, you're going to have Rob chasing a hamster around a wheel. Is it this house? Is it this house? Is it this burn house? Okay, if it's this far up the mountain, is it considered? This is all bullshit. You've got to give them direction. Rob and Yolanda know what to do.
We're trying to give direction.
Okay, so give them direction on what you think they should do. And if it's a temporary, there are small temporary septic systems that people can have, and you can hire septic companies to pump those systems. We can hire a production builder on a consultant basis for most of these houses because they're just cookie cutter. They're 2,500, 2,000 square feet. They just flip around and they look different. If we're worried about people not being able to build, a production builder can build a lot cheaper than any of us can build. Let's think outside the box and get these people back in their homes. Okay.
Bravo. Keep it simple.
So first, one report, so I put a poll out for the 40 homeowners on Las Flores Beach, and the vast majority are completely fine with the S word. I won't personally use it, but they're fine with the S word. So I've been here long enough to never use that word.
Which S word?
Not to use it. So whatever it may be, it is.
It's got a W in it instead of a.
So I'm just not gonna say it. I couldn't believe I heard it out of Brian's mouth.
Okay, so
let me finish. So you're faced with. So I look at, people are talking about eminent domain, right? People are hoping maybe for that as one of the great options, right? People saying maybe we shouldn't even be on the beach. Well, me living on the beach, maybe I think people in the mountain shouldn't be in the mountain. But they're my neighbors, and they're my friends, and they love it, so I'm for them, I'm with them, and I will fight my ass off for them. So eminent domain's being thrown out here. The other thing that's being thrown out for our long-term prognosis is billionaires buy up everything, and it looks like hell. The third option is we find ways for the people who own houses on the beach, especially Las Flores, as we get down, who don't have a nickel, to be able to build their homes. So we're trying to get the vast majority built. I happen to have better insurance than most people I know. I'm still, when my first quotes come in, and I'm maybe a 10% contingency at this point, basically I get no shot with that. I expect I'll run into things where maybe I have to put my retaining wall along PCH, maybe I have to pay for that. So I'm here with these top line things, looking for you guys to continue finding ways to decrease my costs so I can come back and do this. So if you can get FEMA to come in along with Caltrans, I know Traverse looked at this, to do the retaining wall on PCH. Useful for me, really useful from the end of my beach all the way to Topanga. Incredibly useful, will save them. Lots. So find ways, if the sewer's the way, oh God, I said it. If that's the way to do it, great. All for it. Let's figure that out.
I agree with what you just said. You're in a fortunate position, unfortunate to be in the position, but fortunate coming out of it, right? But there are so many people that aren't situated like you are. And it's easy to blame the process. It's easy to blame the time we're taking to make decisions and the staff is taking. The fact is, there was a fire. And the fire destroyed properties and people don't have the money to rebuild them. And unfortunately, we can't solve that problem. We can do things on the fringes to make it less expensive and to make it more efficient, but we can't solve the gap of $1 million that you don't have to rebuild your house.
So
We
my
just can't.
soft costs
The federal
are-
government and the state government possibly can.
Yeah, so I agree, but my soft costs, what I'm looking at right now, are somewhere between 15 to 20 times what it costs us to build a house. That's a real deal. I mean, and we know as we find out which contractors are really available, what materials are available, how clogged PCH is, and how long it's gonna take us to get materials in if hopefully 100 houses are building at the same time. You know, I'm realizing that my 10% contingency really is not even gonna come close. So, and again, I have more insurance than anybody I found along the beach, so if I can't make it, you know, unless somebody's willing to take another $2 million construction loan, folks like who've been here a long stretch ain't coming back.
And my concern, which I said before, and I hate saying it, my concern is that we're helping people, we're enabling people to go down the road a little further and spend more of the limited resources and life they have, thinking they're going to get to an end that they're going to realize 6 months, a year, 2 years from now they're not going to get to. And I don't want to be an enabler. I just don't want to do that.
Let's bring this to.
It's time, you guys got the time, man, let's
All right,
make policy.
Please, everybody's had a chance to speak. We've gone down the road here. Let's just hold it off for a moment. We need to come to closure, give direction to the staff.
I have a question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Do we ever talk about selling water, reclaiming water, and then selling it? Is
We
that
do that in
something?
the wastewater treatment system.
Right. And so is that factored into some costs?
Give direction.
Yeah, something, oh, give direction, let's look into, I'd like you to look into reclaiming water and reselling it, please.
So one of the things with the existing plant in phase one is the property owners that are hooked up currently get first right to that water, and then they pay for any additional water over their input and output.
And also, as Rob was saying, the Water Resources Board makes you have a no recycled water provision. You gotta be able to handle all the water that comes out when you recycle it.
This is related to what we've been talking about, but it's something we haven't even touched about giving direction. Can we use this session to give direction? I'd like to see the staff explore whether there is a way to let people retain their existing septic system and not have to put in a new one. Everyone keeps asking for that.
I think you're right at that point. This is what I wanted to bring up. Let's get down to consensus. Because that's one of the things I want to make sure we covered in this, is what's the rules for keeping what you have or replacing it? And we haven't talked about that at all in this.
Yeah,
And
I'd
I
like
think
to
that
see the most flexibility we legally can grant them to do that.
So I'm looking to Yolanda, what are our rules, real quick, on the septic systems that are in place?
And we discussed this with the water board. We do have an ordinance, and we do have it stating that an advanced treatment system must be placed.
New construction.
For new construction, it's also for rebuild. We met with our city attorney's office, and he's here present, he can add to the conversation. So we are betting this, it wasn't just a decision, a last minute decision. There was also a presentation that was done for the beachfront properties in which there was a possibility of it reusing what you had, and you just add a box to make it, to upgrade it. You want to add anything?
Right. In other words, if your system had the possibility, and you would need to speak to somebody like Andrew Sheldon, or one of the other designers, you could add supplemental treatment and not necessarily rip out everything you had.
But it has to be upgraded.
Trevor, two questions. One, is there any legal argument at all that we can treat the fire rebuild different under the ordinance that was just mentioned? And the second one is, if we can't, and then this is not a question for Trevor, but if we can't, why isn't that one of the things we can't go to the governor on and say, can you please add that to your declarations, that's off the table too? I'm overruling that for a fire rebuild like for like. So those are two questions.
So there's nothing in there right now that we'd be able to, there's nothing in the code right now that would allow you to treat the fire victims differently in terms of the building code requirements on there. There's-
It goes back to the last, it's the agreement that the city has with the state, with the water board. The water board allows the city to have their own environmental department, so we can issue those type of systems, right? We are not sending any of our property owners to LA County Public Health to do this type of reviews. Everything is being done in our city. Under that agreement, the specifications are clear, and this was vetted with the city attorney's office. It was also vetted with the water board, and it was clear. For them, new development, it could be a rebuild, it's still considered new development, and under that provision, must comply with an advanced system. I don't have the section of the code, but I can provide that to city council.
And this is what the water board is determined for LA County as well as Palisades. They have these same standards that we have. They're on sewer? I thought maybe there was somewhere on
So
sewer.
I would like to see
There's no septics
agreements
in
in the
LA.
code provision and see if
Yeah,
there's
there's
any
no
legal
septics
in LA
that I
City.
can think of.
Oh, no, LA County.
Period.
Hold on a second, let's close this up here.
So you think that's another, an answer for your second question?
I agree with many of the things you said, but I think it's a little more complicated than that, and I just want to get it out. Because I don't want people getting penalized on the beach. So at the end of the day, I agree, the code today is you upgrade, because that's what was done in 2018. But that coincides with the LAMP agreement. And the LAMP agreement is mostly because there's seepage pits and some other stuff that's out there that we're behind on as a city. And it's like, you give up this and get that, right? So because the city's behind on its commitments on the LAMP, shouldn't be taken out on the residents. Because I think it's more about the seepage pits and some of the environmental concerns with that if you go back and look at the LAMP agreement. So what I would propose, instead of penalizing those of us on the beach with that regard, there is already data on your own website that shows that we can use the existing septic systems if it's certified by a contractor. So we're up here saying it's not allowed, it's on the website. I've downloaded the sheets, I've shared it with a lot of people, we have it. So you're in direct conflict with what you're saying. So please look, because with the LAMP, it ties in.
All right, let's keep on in mind.
The whole thing,
We're way past,
We
way
gotta
past.
deal with this, Doug.
Well, hold on a second.
Now, this is important, because the staff is doing one thing, you guys are saying another.
Let's go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to be brief, okay? The whole reason that the regional board and the city got into a lawsuit, and maybe another, is because of the septic systems on the beach, because of the pollution in the ocean. That was the whole impetus. So in the LAMP, there are triggers, and it's all designed to force everybody to upgrade their systems.
I respect you saying that, but not being in the meetings myself. LA County, it's the water quality overall. You're saying it's about the beach and leakage to the ocean. Everything that's public knowledge and out there to be able to look at is holistic for the system. So it's not as specific as you're saying.
But the majority of the pollution that
You
was
said
being
that, but
contributed was
that's not
into
what's
the
in the
groundwater at the shoreline.
But there's,
Okay, this is beyond what we've agendized. We can talk more about this if we want to put a future item on this. I also don't want to, there's allegations about the pollution and the origins of it.
Thank you.
The impetus of it. There's a debate about what's provable and what's going to be required in different phases. So I don't want to get too far into the history on that. But if we want to talk more about this, I would suggest we put a future agenda item.
So Trevor, are you saying though that the agreement and the ordinance, there's absolutely no gray argument whatever that a home destroyed by what I hate calling this a natural disaster because it wasn't, but it's formally being classified as a natural disaster. But a house destroyed by a natural disaster that's rebuilt like for like fits, there's no argument that it doesn't?
The provisions that,
We can hear you.
okay, no, the provisions that,
Yolanda and I looked into, we did not see wiggle room on that. We're happy to look into it more. No one's looking to, increase the expense to anyone, so it's something that, if there is any wiggle room, we're happy to explore it. We've not seen anything that would allow that.
So do you want to direct him to do it? Because.
Yes.
Good idea.
Yeah. There you go.
And also you need to come back to, you need to direct them to go to the governor about the other issue.
You gonna run
that
next time?
Forgot about. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is, they're saying they can't go to the governor to ask about PCH.
Yeah.
That's right. And the wall. So I think before you guys end, you have to direct them, one, about the sewers, which you did, which was the 5 ideas. Second, you need to direct them
go to the governor's office or whoever they need to talk to say, can they build at Big Rock area, whatever, a wall, you know, whatever PCH needs. And number 3 is this other issue. So I think
No, there's
we
a
need-
fourth. And number 4 is you need to direct them to, while they're looking at the sewer options, to look into financing options with each option as well. So we have those together.
All right, hold on a second, everybody. Look, we've got a process here, and you think that one of the comments that keeps coming up is, you guys take too long on this, you need to give direction and so forth. We are trying to do that. But we also have an issue, it's called the Brown Act, and I hate that thing more than you can imagine. But if we don't have it agendized, we can't discuss it and tell these people what to do. And we set this up to talk about sewers. Now we're into seawalls, you're into septic tank reuses. We're over what we've been able to put in here.
Well, I think
Please, hey, one at a time. Our mission right now is to get a decision quickly on sewers. And sewers, the direction we've given to the staff is they've got 5 options. Let's go see which ones are the no options, and then come back and tell us parameters of the ones that do possibly work. But we are looking at seeing what the septic tank system options are.
Well, one of the reasons.
Okay, wait. Hang on, that's been really quiet.
So I agree with the audience with regards that if the sewer is a possibility, the facts are we're going to have to look at shoring up. Somebody is going to have to take responsibility for shoring up Pacific Coast Highway. So I think that it has a nexus to the connection with here. So I would like to give direction to staff to make sure that they are talking with Caltrans and any other, all agencies that are applicable for that, to make sure that we have that information.
I agree.
We can have staff bring back a report looking into exploring these options with the state and bringing a report back about what's available to the city and make that report if there's further action needed from us. We can go do that.
We've given direction to the staff about the sewers and what we've got here. I'd like to know from Rob or Yolanda or whoever, what's the timing that we can get at least an indication back from you? Because I think this needs to be moving with just feedback and information. Week, 2 weeks, tomorrow?
Maybe Monday.
My page.
Tax day.
Probably even 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Can we put this back on the agenda? So now we've got the sewer system covered for our agenda. No,
Mayor, one sentence, and that is very simple. You guys are God. Be progressive. If you want a sewer system that works, separate it between gray water and black water. Then all the water that's black water gets treated. All the water that's gray water can be released. You guys can do it so that the rest of the country and the rest of our coastline can have 2 separate systems. Gray water from dishes, from sinks, and black water, totally separate. You've just reduced by over 50% the treatment of that. The moment you say yes to that, other homeowners that aren't affected right now are going to go, I want that too. And they can transform their system to a 2-water system that's perfectly safe and perfectly natural.
Okay, let's do it. Your message is received.
Give direction.
But here's the issue we've got. We're trying to move this along quickly to get the feedback that you want about it. We're going to have septic tanks for sewers. And we've given direction to the staff. Bruce, quick.
And to follow up, I agree with Mary Ann that the issue of the seawall for the highway is related to the
It's
sewer.
related to it.
I think so is the question of whether people can use their existing salvageable system. So, can we include in the direction to the staff to reach out to the governor's office to see if the order can't be amended to, or a new order, to say something to the effect that a fire rebuild is not a rebuild as that term has been used historically. It's a new animal. Call it something else. Call it a fire, put it back together. Just call it something else and say, just like he did, that CEQA's gone and the Coastal Commission's gone, that any restrictions that apply to new development and rebuilds in the historical sense, with respect to, at least with respect to these systems, does not apply. and then we could easily say to people, you're welcome to use your existing system.
Bruce, I'm right there with you. All I have got to say is, you look at what the governor has given to us. It has taken efforts, and I'll call it back channels, to get that done, and we'll see what we can get done. And I think
But
it's.
they need
I think
direction to try.
They got direction, and I think it's already been.
And just to add to that, so you don't go directly to the governor and say, hey, governor, take away all this.
Sure we can.
Just do it. And I'm just trying to make it realistically. We will need to go to the board. We already met with them.
Okay.
We'll go out again with our city attorney's office and with their city attorney's office, their counsel. And then we can get an interpretation. And then we can bring it back in 2 weeks.
Did we have to go to the coastal commission to get them to agree with the governor to get rid of the coastal commission rules?
No, we had to go around the coastal commission.
Right, so why couldn't we go around the water board? That's my point.
We have 2 more topics we need
We
to
got
talk
2 more
about.
topics. We're going to take a break right now. We've already taken care of this for the sewer topic. We've got 2 more to do, so let's take a break for 10 minutes.
We're not gonna have topics, we want to make sure that they have the direction. They got it?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, 10 minutes, we'll be back at 10 minutes till 6. Okay, everybody, let's sit down. We got 2 more items to cover, and we're not going to be able to complete the agenda tonight because we spent so much time on the sewers and septic systems and so forth. So what we're going to do is, we've got a closed session. The council is going to close session for some legal issues. And we're going to have to close this tonight and have Bob come back in 2 weeks. Staff is completed their day. It's been a long day for them as well. And, pardon? They got pay raises.
I don't think they'll get it.
They'd rather have a light. All right, so what we have to do in order to close this meeting out, because we haven't completed the agenda, we need a motion to adjourn, and then we'll have to come back.
Move to adjourn and let's just make the continuation of this our meeting 2 weeks from now.
All right, so.
No geometry? You want to adjourn this agenda to, what's the date?
It'll be adjourned tomorrow or after
The
tomorrow.
next special, excuse me, the next special work session will be on April 24th. We do also have an item on this Monday's agenda to discuss what you would like on the April 24th agenda.
Well, let's adjourn this and continue the agenda to the 24th.
April 24th at 3 o'clock in this room, Chelsea.
All right, do I have a motion for that?
Yes.
All right, motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Being none, we're going to adjourn this meeting to start up again on the 24th, and we'll cover the 2 open topics, and we should have a report back on the sewers and septics at that time. Okay? Thanks, everybody.